Right. I would like to call this session of the Board of Revision.
I got it now. Sorry.
And make the following statements. Beginning by acknowledging that we are in Treaty 1 territory and the traditional homeland of the Métis Nation. I am Mark Boreski. I will be chairing the panel today. With me on the panel are Kathleen Garrity via Zoom and Bill Moretsky. The secretary today is Michelle Neepin and our assessor is Tanya Sharp. We'll be hearing applications for revision of the assessment roll in accordance with the Municipal Assessment Act. The matters for which revision is requested have been described in each application, and we will limit discussion to those matters. The statements that applicants or the assessor make at this hearing are sworn testimony, and anyone speaking to the matters must be sworn in. Be advised that comparisons of assessments of properties are not considered evidence of market value by the Board of Revision. The Board of Revision is appointed annually by Council and is independent of it and the City Administration. It makes its decisions on the basis of the evidence provided at this hearing and issues a written order that will be mailed to all parties as soon as possible. Please note that the Board's decisions with respect to an application may be appealed to the Manitoba Municipal Board if the matter pertains to assessed value or classification, or to the Court of Queen's Bench if the matter pertains to the application of exemptions from taxation. Should you wish to appeal, information on how to do so will be included with the Board's order. With respect to the hearing process, I will confirm the matters to be addressed with each applicant following the swearing in. We will then have the assessor's testimony followed by questions that the applicant may have, and then the applicant's testimony followed by questions. Each side will have an opportunity to summarize if they wish. Once all the evidence about an application has been brought forward, the applicant may leave. The process will repeat for each item on the docket today. The session will close after all the applications have been heard, and the Board will deliberate in private and make its decisions. You will receive the order by registered mail as soon as possible. As information, all public hearings are live streamed, recorded, and will be part of the public record. As directed by Manitoba Health, we're requesting people avoid close contact within 2 meters with anyone showing symptoms of a respiratory illness, such as coughing or sneezing. If you're influencing flu-like symptoms, we are requested that you excuse yourself from the room. With that, could we have the swearing in of the assessor and the first applicant, please?
Please state your full name, please. Tanya Sharp. Do you affirm that the evidence you are giving is the truth, the whole truth? Yes. Sorry. You can move your wall. It's okay.
Robert John McLaughlin.
Do you affirm that the evidence you want to give at this hearing is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, sir.
Just wanted to mention that Rob copies. Unfortunately, I don't have a way or a means of getting it to Kathleen right now.
If it helps, I don't mind waiting. Will you scan it and send it to her?
Well, I've got the agenda and the docket is next. I got 2 different, that's all I got, the agenda and the docket.
I can send her, all I want to send her at this point is the assessor's brief.
We'll start if she can't see his evidence, particularly because it's fairly substantial.
Did you want to take a recess that I can go down to my office and scan it?
How long would it take you?
5 minutes.
I just got 12 more items. Is that what you're needing me to have? There's the all the different properties.
You know what, I tried sending so many emails to you, now I don't know which. Do you have items number 3 in there?
I have item number 3, yes.
Okay, well, that's the first one.
Okay, I got that. I got all 12 items in the most recent email.
So in item number 3, it's entitled Comparative Market Analysis, has a photo with a tree.
She doesn't have this.
She doesn't have this.
This.
Oh, she has something else.
She has the assessor's brief, she does not have.
Oh, I see. Okay, well, in that case, let's take the time to try scanning it and send it to her. Would be doing Mr. McLaughlin an injustice otherwise. Okay, we will resume the hearing. And Ms. Sharp, could you take us through your evidence, please?
The first property we're talking about today is parcel ID 030809775500. It's at 709 South Drive in the area of Crescent Park. It's a 1.5-story property built in 1919, 2,142 square feet with a full basement, which is completely unfinished. It has 2 baths, and it has a fairly recently built garage of about 528 square feet in 2005. It has a very large size lot for the area of 15,873. And right now we have this property assessed at 371,000. And the comparables I've used are all in the Crescent Park Point Road area, all 1.5-story, 1 3/4-story, 2-story, which are all fairly similar in this area. Range in age from 1922 up to an effective age of 1948. All the properties are about 500 square feet smaller, except Comp 2, which is about 200 square feet smaller. They all have garages. Some are smaller, some are a little bit older. The properties that I have used, most of them are in poor condition. I've done research through the MLS. The subject property itself is in poor condition, so majority of the value from this property is probably going to be coming from the land in the area that it's in. We can't just compare it to land without the buildings being gone. So I have compared it to properties that are in similar condition. They range, number 4 you can see is probably the lowest value one at 258,000. It is a handyman special. And where you're going to notice the price differences in these properties is in the land. It has a 7,389 square foot lot, which is smaller than half the size of the lot we're dealing with the subject property. Again, Comp 3 has been updated a little bit, has a little newer garage, but again, it's about half of the size of the lot, sold for 361,000. Comp 2, again, about half the size of the lot, sold for 343. And comp number 1, which is 9,845. So just a little bit larger than half the size, sold for 378,000. I also, you'll see I have included a map to show where those properties are. They're all within that general area. I've also included a second assessment. It shows 2 vacant land properties. One is in Riverside and one is North Drive. Again, the map is located following that sheet. The first one is Red River adjacent, so it's similar in size, but probably superior to the property we're looking at. The second property is only 4,222 square feet, so quite a bit smaller than the property we're looking at. Both of them are ranging between $26 a square foot and $34 a square foot for the bare land. I worked that out, and for comp 1, if we use the 2608 as the comparable price, multiplied it by the 15,873, you get a property value of about $413,000. For the comparable number 2, if we used the $34.01, multiplied it by the 15,873 lot size, you get about $522,000. So I feel that whether it's sold as a building on its own or whether it is sold and demolished for land, we've considered both directions, and I'm asking for no change to the assessment value of $371.
Mr. McLaughlin, questions?
Yes, please, Mr. Chairman. Have you inspected any of these properties that you use for comparables for the subject?
Is the question to me?
Yes,
Yeah, have I inspected any of them? No, just through MLS information.
it's through ML.
Yeah, we can't do inspections right now.
Okay, now, what is the condition of this property in your assessment file?
My understanding is it's in very,
No, you in our conversation, you categorized it, you said it went from average to fair.
correct, yes.
Didn't you just tell me that, or state to the board that it's in poor condition?
Yes,
Why didn't you change it to poor then?
well, fair and poor are very close. What we're using is comparable properties that are similar to that property.
But you haven't been in any of these places.
No, I can't go in those properties right now, but I have looked at the pictures through the MLS.
Okay. Can you please give me the actual dimensions of the lots for your comparables?
I do not have the dimensions for the lots because we don't use dimensions, we just use square footage.
What is the most valuable portion of a lot size?
You're welcome to argue that. I don't have any evidence on that.
You are arguing that it's a square footage. These things are half the size.
That is what assessment uses, is square footage
Are
of lot size.
you aware that the subject property is 100 feet lineal frontage?
No, as I said, we don't use the lineal frontage.
And that the neighbor, 701 South, are you aware that that's 73 feet frontage?
No, I'm not. As I've said, I don't know this. We use square footage of the lot.
What is the most valuable part of the lot?
I can't comment on that.
Your land sales, Riverside. You don't know what the dimensions of that lot is?
No, as I've explained, we do not use dimensions, so any question regarding dimensions, I can't answer.
Is it not incumbent upon you to, if you're going to make comparisons, to know what you're talking about when you're using the comparison?
We use square footage.
Square footage. So you don't know how deep the Riverside lot is?
We use square footage.
The Riverside lot, are you aware that it's 500 feet deep?
Asked and answered.
Now, your comparison on Riverside sold for $339,000 in June of 2017.
Correct.
Is that correct? Are you aware that there are 3 developed sales on Riverside, backing onto the river, as this property does, that have sold for less than land value? Occupiable houses at 16, 24, and 12 Riverside, all built in the 40s and 50s, sold for between $385 and $332, which leaves, where's the residual value for the buildings?
I don't have any information on that. You're welcome to argue that.
So you're arguing that the lot value is $339, that's a good comparison.
No, I'm saying it's superior. I'm saying that lot size is superior. We're at $26.47 a square foot.
Okay. No further questions.
Ms. Garrity, do you have questions for the assessor?
No, I do not.
Mr. Moretsky?
No questions.
Of your comparables with buildings, can you identify one that you would regard as the most similar to the subject?
As far as condition, Comparable for is a handyman special. So I would say it's equal or lesser value than the one we're looking at right now. 701 would probably be the most comparable as far as our area is concerned. 701 South, because we're on 709, 701 South would be for area.
For area, because it's the larger
Yeah.
of those four.
But again, the property has very little value.
What accounts for the substantially different sale price between number 4 and 2 and 3, given that they're much the same size in land area, relatively similar in living area? Is it the fact that the effective age is newer, or is there anything else to it?
Yes, comparable number 2 and 3, when they were reviewed, they determined that they had some upgrades. So comparable 2 has a 20-year effective age, and comparable number 3 has a 25-year effective age based on probably updates to the building, whereas comparable 4 is a 1927. I mean, it's 10 years newer than the subject property, but probably has had no updates as well.
The land area of the subject is large compared with your comparables, but it's not particularly large in that stretch of South Drive. Is that correct?
That stretch of South Drive is has larger lots, yeah.
Okay. Relative to the comparables, what does that larger lot enable them to do?
You certainly could build a larger house on a larger lot.
Are there any particular setbacks, side yard requirements, anything like that?
I couldn't tell you what the setback side yards are for the South Drive. I do know it would be similar to 701 South Drive. 709 and 701 would be similar, although 701 is a corner lot and 701 is half the size.
Okay. That's all my questions. Mr. McLaughlin, your evidence, please.
Yes, sir. Thank you. Please accept my brief as evidence. Let's start with the pictures, I guess, first of all. So I'll ask you to go to page 3. Page 3, this is the front picture from the street. At the top, the bottom one is from the driveway, illustrating the age, and you can see in the background the 22 by 24 garage built in 2005, as the assessor said. The next page, page 4, there's copious amounts of structural cracks. None of the doors close properly. The front door, as a matter of fact, you can't open that door. It's jimmied shut, and you can see that the canopy over top of the door is falling apart. You'll also notice that the original windows, this place is very much 1919. Of course, I wasn't around in 1919, but I'm assuming that not a lot has changed. I draw your attention to the next page. And they say kitchens and bathrooms sell homes. Well, let's have a look. This particular bathroom is, that's a shower with a makeshift curtain around it. That is the one that's utilized most often. That's on the second floor. And the kitchen has had, at one point, some newer cabinets put in. The next page is the boiler. The asbestos wrapped boiler in the basement, and then the knob and two wiring underneath it. Now, when I started this analysis, recognizing the fact that this is a large home on a large lot built in 1919, the criteria was looking for large homes, so better than 1,500 square feet, on large lot, built before 1940. I figured that would have similar attributes. And this is what I've come up with. And you can see, I've not adjusted any of the sales. The next page starts off with the asking price and the sold price and the sale dates. And of course, you can see The very first one is 709 South Drive. And it sold back in 1998 for $129,900. The next page starts my comparables. And this is the actual listing from 19, what did I say it was? 89? Fort Garry East, spectacular location, mature natural trees, 100 by 156 foot lot in the Ravenscourt area, 4 bedrooms, top floor. Requires repairs, but it still requires repairs. The structural problems make it not worth fixing. Nobody would ever purchase this property and keep the house. The house would be gone.
Excuse me, just so we know what we're looking at, is this information as advertised or as sold?
709 South Drive, the very top one, this is the sale. This is the listing from that sale. And
So in all of these subsequent ones, these are the selling prices on the advertised.
right. Well, if you go back to the page before, the listing, it shows you what the actual asking price was. So 709 South Drive was $139,900 and it sold for $129,900.
Okay, carry on.
Okay. The very next one, 930 Somerset. Now this is one the assessor did not use, but it's hugely relevant as she did mention subdividing lots. Now the relevant part about subdividing lots is you need width, not depth. So if you have a 120-foot lot or a 150-foot lot, that doesn't matter. What matters is how wide the lot is. And to argue that this is twice as large as a 73-foot lot, it's ridiculous and it's not relevant. This particular home at 930 Somerset starts off by telling you that it's not a bad home and it's on an 80 by 120-foot lot. Then I've highlighted at the bottom, it's got a double detached garage, and city planning has indicated they would consider a 40 by 120, two 40 by 120-foot lots if the house was torn down. So this essentially sold for land value because this place has been torn down and it has been subdivided. So this lot sold for $250,000, less the price of the demolition. 933 North Drive. First line, it says, attention renovators, a 70 by 105-foot lot. It has a single detached garage. This thing sells for $258,000. So what we have an example of here are homes that need work in the area on large lots, 70 by 105 and 80 by 120, selling for less than $300,000. Next page, please.
We go back to this one, just briefly, sorry, again on this, just to be sure we know what we're looking at. The 258 is the price that it's sold at, not the advertised. But the detail below, that is the same detail that was used for advertising purposes. Is that correct?
Yes, that was on the listing.
Yeah. Okay.
That's not my writing, that's on the listing. I'm sorry.
Yes, that's right. Yeah.
My next comparison is 948 Marion. Built 1931, 1,322 square feet, attached double garage. Modern finished basement with bright rec room, den, 60 by 115-foot lot, upgrades. This particular home, all kinds of upgrades, sells for $345,000. 701 South Drive. Now I've looked at all these pictures, and all these pictures are much superior to the subject property. Got a full basement with extra bath, and a double attached garage with a 73 by 120, 134-foot lot. Now, how can you say that that is half the size? That is misleading. This particular lot is just as attractive as a 100-foot lot. 749 Somerset on a 60 by 122-foot lot. And this has a main floor heated bathroom floor. These are large homes, and they're all selling for less than $400,000, $343 in this case. So what I've illustrated here is that homes that are functional and occupiable and move-in ready are selling for considerably less or than the assessment on the subject property, which is a tear down. And just to prove the point that a developed lot perhaps has less value than a vacant lot, very next page is, the very next page is the map showing the sales and where they are. The page after that is I just asked the MLS for sales between 2015 and April 1st, 2018, for sales on South Drive specifically. And as you can see, the sold price listings, they go from 297,000 to 390,000. These are all newer 1950s homes, as you can see from the year built line. And they've all sold for approximately what the subject property is assessed at. So if the land is so valuable at 701 or 709 South Drive, why are these places selling for land value only when they have a perfectly good house on it? Well, they're not. The assessment is too high. We have a nice lot. We have a house that needs to be torn down, and we have a decent garage at 22 by 24. So what I'm suggesting, and if I can take you back to the second page, and by the way, I did inspect thoroughly the subject property. And I'll just go through my summary, if you don't mind. Okay, as I said in the beginning, built 1919, it's a story and a half. And my criteria was all homes that were either 1.5 stories or 1 3/4 stories or 2-story homes. Severe non-curable structural foundations, knob and tube wiring, old asbestos wrapped boiler, and many of the original features. A 22 by 24 garage built in 2005, as the assessor said. This home would be considered in poor condition. The criteria I used, as I said, was 1.5 to 2-story homes, built between January 1st, 2015 and April 1st, 2018. 1940 is the age or less, and 1,500 square feet or more. The 5 area sales range from $250,000 to $378,000. Now, as I said in the beginning, the first 2 sales were less than $300,000. One was obviously torn down and subdivided. The second stated boldly in the beginning that it needs renovation, and these sold for less than $300,000. I'm suggesting to you that this home has, at the best, nominal value. The garage has some value, and that this property should be assessed at $300,000. The fact that it has a building on it, given the evidence presented by both the assessor and myself, any kind of a substantial land value is kind of inconclusive. But a developed building, whether it's tear down or not, sells in this kind of range less than $300,000, it looks like. So I'm suggesting to you, and I'm asking the board to reduce the assessment from $371,000 down to $300,000. Thank you.
Ms. Sharp, questions?
The, on your page of comparables, the one where you show the 1998 listing, and the one right underneath, which you say is the most comparable?
I didn't say it was the most comparable. I said it's something, it was just subdivided.
Did you not say that it was in about similar condition to your property?
No, actually, what I said was they actually talk glowingly about the place, and then they tell you to rip it down if you want to have 2 lots. It's the next one that says that it needs renovation.
Okay, well, I misunderstood then. I thought you explained that one was of a similar condition. It was tear down condition, basically, and which is what you're stating yours is.
Mine is the subject is tear down condition. This one, in the write-up, it talks about this is remodeled and this is remodeled and that's remodeled, and then it tells you to rip it down at the end of the paragraph. So
Okay. And both properties, if this 80 by 120 foot property could be subdivided into 40 foot lots, then the subject property that is 100 by 156 could be subdivided into 2 lots as well.
Well, again, based on the zoning and I guess the neighbors complaining, yeah, I guess it could be, possibly.
Okay. Just your argument is that some of the properties had wider lots, so they were able to be subdivided easier. And this one is 80 square feet, so it can be subdivided, so we can assume that 100 square foot would be subdivided in the same neighborhood.
Again, I don't know whether they're zoned similarly, but notionally, I would say yes, that's correct.
Okay. So when I take a look at these properties, the 930 Somerset that was sold for land ends up being $26 per square foot.
Well, it didn't sell for land. It sold as a house.
Okay, and it sold for $26 per square foot. And the subject property we have assessed at $23 a square foot. So we actually have it assessed lower per square foot. Per lot size, we have it assessed lower than this other property.
Yeah, but there's more square feet. It makes the land. We're talking about a house that they state can be occupied. We've got all these copious renovations done. Well, you look at the listing back in 1998 or whenever the thing sold, the subject property, it's very humdrum and very succinct about it, needs lots of work. Well, since then, not much has been done, and the place has fallen apart. The foundation, you can't close any of the interior doors. The exterior doors are a problem. Original windows. These other places, if you go through the MLS pictures of them, they look like a nice place to live. All of them. Subject property, not so much.
And I'm stipulating that the condition is probably not stellar, but there is someone living in it right now. Yes, so it is a livable house at this point. So someone is living in it. So we do look at it as a house that can be lived in.
Right. Well,
right. But even given that, I'm stipulating that the value is in the land.
How can you do that? Based on what? Based on what sales?
Based on that? Okay. Based on the sales that I
the only sales we have are 2 properties that need work, and they sold for less than $300,000.
Okay, no more questions.
Ms. Garrity, questions?
No questions, thank you.
Mr. Moretsky.
So just to clarify, the frontage of the subject property is 100 feet, correct?
Correct.
100. And so you said there were structural problems with it?
Yes.
What kind of, that's a crack in the stucco, I see.
Well, it's right around the house. It's not stucco, it's the basement, it's the foundation. As I said.
What this picture on the front page and the first picture, is that not the main floor we're seeing?
Yes.
So you're saying, but there's cracks in the foundation itself?
The foundation is cracking and moving. It's pushing out the basement walls. It's, as I said, the doors you can't close.
So you're saying that it's mainly the frontage of the house that, the lot that counts in a situation where the house is basically a tear down, right? In those situations,
well,
the value is really in the frontage. Is that what you're saying? For the most part, is there any value at all on the size of the whole lot? Like, you're not getting any value on that?
With a house on it? No, there's no value. It's a selling feature.
So the actual size of the lot has no value to you,
if it's
other
developed,
than the frontage of it?
If it's developed, it is what it is. If you tear it down, then you got 2 lots, possibly. This particular house is built right in the middle. You could not subdivide it and sell off a lot. Years ago, the department used to have something called the Summers depth table.
Mm-hmm.
And what they did is they measured, the standard lot was 1 by 100. And if it went deeper than 100, they would add a bit to the front. The 110, now maybe it's instead of 50 by 100, now maybe it's 51 by 100. Like, they recognize the fact that the depth had very little value compared to the width. The width is subdividable. What can you do with it? You got a 120-foot lot and a 150-foot lot. What's the difference? I mean, you can put a pool in either one if you want. You can't build a second structure back there. Width, that's where the value is, not depth. So to call it square footage is misleading and really goes against all appraisal practice.
Okay, no further questions.
So this lot, according to the information on 930 Somerset, that lot could be divided into 40 by 120 lots. The subject property, its width is, what did you say?
50 or 100 by 100 or
And
156.
do you know whether the city would permit that to be subdivided into?
As I said to the assessor, depends on zoning, and of course it depends on whether or not the neighbors will allow a variance. There's a lot of pretty fancy homes across the street.
You're assuming that it would require a variance in order to subdivide?
I said it may require a variance. I'm not sure of the zoning or what the or how it compares to Somerset as far as zoning.
When a lot, just hypothetically, a lot of 100 feet is divided into two that have 50-foot frontage, do the two sell for some increment in total higher than the value originally of the wide lot? Is that what happens upon subdivision? That invariably you would get more money for the two lots than you had for the one?
I would suggest yes, but the cost of subdivision is
Now tear down.
Yeah, well, to tear down and to actually change the zoning, if you need to do that,
Right.
that can be thousands and thousands of dollars. So really, what is your cost by the time you buy the thing and tear the place down and then add in the cost of variance?
Or are you thinking there would be many lots on South Drive that are 100 or more or less 100 feet of frontage?
This seems to be the only one. There's the one, actually, if you look at my last two pages, 435 or 495 South Drive. This is 88 by 121. It doesn't show up on the listings, but if you look at the page before, it sold for $297,000 in relatively poor condition, I guess. And then it turns around and sells a couple of years later for $90,000 more, fixed up. But still, what we're talking about is 495 South Drive. It's 1373 square foot building in 1955, sold for $387,000, which is pretty much what the assessment is on the subject property at 371. This is a fixed up place on an 88-foot lot.
On South Drive, the say 3 years or so leading up to the reference date, have there been homes, to your knowledge, that have been torn down because they were old and decrepit? And if so, have new ones been built in their place?
I couldn't tell you, sir.
And then obviously you couldn't also say whether those lots were actually subdivided if they were large lots.
Well, I did do a bit of an investigation on 930 Somerset. So 930 was 34. And what I did determine is that the 40-foot lots, because I did look to see what the assessments are on these things, comparing the assessments for the equity purposes, which is important, equity, by the way. The lots were, the current assessment on 930 Somerset is $139,000, which is a 40 by 120-foot lot. They're side by each, two of them, $139,000. So they sold notionally for 125. Now they're assessed at 139.
That's which address?
930 Somerset. That's of course after tearing down the house and whatever cost that is. And the cost of subdivision.
Is that the same sort of market as South Drive?
It's in the same area. So,
Is there any cachet to South Drive? Are people going to pay more on South Drive than they are on
Well,
the side streets around it?
it's a river access street, right? But it's also a bus route. It's very busy. What precipitated this appeal for the owner is the corner of Manchester and Point Road. And this is not my evidence because it didn't sell. But this particular property is a brick house built at similar in time, 2,000 square feet. Right across the street is a park. It's beautiful, but it's on Point Road in Manchester. And this thing's assessed at $287,000. And such a nice building, and it's a similar size lot. And yet it's $100,000 difference to the owner. So he was a bit perturbed about that, and he felt it needed to be closer to that because it certainly is a beautiful home on a nice street, dead-end street, across from green space. So that's where we're at. That's why I'm here.
That's all my questions.
Can I make a statement?
You can make a concluding statement if you wish. Yes,
Okay.
both parties may do so.
Okay, I just want to say that when we were using our assessment information, we tried to be as close to the reference date of April 1st, 2018 as we can. And I started questioning why I was missing some of the sales that have been brought to our attention. And I just want to state that 930 Somerset was sold in April of 2015. So 3 years before our reference date. So it's probably not something that we would have considered in the situation. And also looking at the land sales or the sales for land that were at the back. The first two were in 2017, and then the third was 2015, and the last two were 2013. So there has to be some adjustment made for time value in these particular cases. We can't be comparing apples to apples. They're not, something that sold in 2013 is not the same as what sold in 2018. So I feel that we have looked at everything and cannot compare assessment to assessment. So comparing to other properties in the area, we are asking there is no change.
Summary, Mr. McLaughlin?
Yes, please. I understand that currently everything is done by model. And if you're in St. Patel and there's 1,000 square foot homes on 50-foot lots, well, model works pretty well. But this is an old neighborhood, various size lots. There's nothing standard here. So some are going to fall through the cracks. And obviously this one has. And the fact that the assessor was rigid and wouldn't consider even a poor designation on it rather than a fair, she stated that it went from average to fair after an inspection. And I mean, I've seen these other homes and notionally they would be average to fair. They're so much better than the subject property. You don't get to create the market. The market is what it is. Questioning why I used 13 or 15 or I could have used 18 and 19 as well. And they substantiate what I'm saying. A house, a dilapidated house on a lot is not worth more than $300,000. And I think I'm being generous at $300,000 because the house really has no value. And the garage at 22 by 24 is whatever it is. So I ask that you reduce the assessment from $371,000 to $300,000.
Thank you very much. That concludes 709 South Drive. And we will then move on to 1,000 Wellington Crescent.
Thank you for your time.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Welcome to the table, Mr. Newfeld.
Should I what?
Yep.
Oh, that was your job. It's just doing that to you to get you.
I know.
I know that. I'll try. Okay. I did read that.
You just like to ruffle my feathers.
Yes, well, it's the highlight of my day, really. You haven't seen what the rest of it's like.
Is that good?
Yeah. And I'm very I'll get them for you in a second.
Yeah.
They're really messy. One, two. I think I got get one for myself. Is that it? No,
You need one?
how many did they give you?
2.
Yeah, I do need one. Oh, I thought I had 3. Okay, I'll give it to you after. I can't find my third. Oh, gee. Oh, I see. Gotcha. Okay.
Can you state your name, please?
Rocky, you phone?
Do you affirm that the evidence you're about to give is the truth, the truth, the whole truth, and
I do.
Mark, whenever you are ready, you lead us through 1000 Wellington Crescent.
Okay. 1000 Wellington Crescent with parcel ID 12042717000. And it's located in the Wellington Crescent area. It's a 1-story property built in 2020. And it has 3,964 square feet. This property is on a 22,474 square foot lot. It is on an external corner and has light traffic influence on it. We currently have the property assessed for $2,087,000, which is $526.49 per square foot. To bring your attention to the subject sale, in 2016, there was a property on this subject land, and it sold for $838,000 and was demolished. There was a permit taken out to demolish the current home, so this is a brand new home that was built in 2020 on Wellington Crescent. Okay, there were 2 permits that were taken out by Outcross Builders, and the first one was in November of 2017, and for $25,000 to demolish the current property, and the second was for $989,000 to build the new residential construction property. Okay, comparable properties, finding comparable properties for just shy of 4,000 square foot bungalow is, to say the least, very difficult. I have done my best to find comparables. I had to go outside of the area, and in some cases I've looked at properties that have had some significant updates done to them to increase the effective age. I would say probably the most comparable property in my estimation would be the one at 209 Grenfell. The only difference is being it's in Old Tuxedo versus Wellington Crescent. They're both, I would say, upscale neighborhoods, but they are in different areas. This property was built in 2014, so about 6 years older than the current property, and only had 2,326 square feet in the bungalow. And it had a 9,747 square foot lot, so half the size of the lot. And this property sold for $1,247,000 in September of 2016. The second one that I would consider is in Park Boulevard, 320 Park Boulevard North, and that is located in Tuxedo area. It was an older home, 1962, but has been significantly renovated. Again, only 2,400 square feet and only 9,700 square feet of property. This property sold for $1,265,000, which is about $521,074 per square foot in October of 2017. The other two properties that I've submitted is an Ash in Wellington, mostly because they were in the neighboring area of Wellington Crescent. Both are considerably older, smaller lot, and both sold for one for $1 million, one for $1,050,000. So I am stipulating that there should be no change to the 2021 assessment value of $2,087,000.
Questions, Mr. Newfield?
Yes. What was the date of the land sale?
It was in 2016. I don't have the date.
Okay.
Or the property that was demolished, you mean?
Well, you're marking it as land sales. So
Yeah,
that's
yeah. The property that was demolished was in 2016, and the demo permit for that was on November the 7th, 2017.
Safe to say that it was at least a year after the purchase.
It could have been.
So why would you assume it was a land sale then?
Because we know it was a land sale. It
Why-
was bought for
why-
property and demolished.
Sorry, you know it is? Who did you ask?
It was purchased and demolished.
Okay, so it's your assumption it was a land
We
sale.
would use it as a land sale.
But it's your assumption. Well, I just want to make sure we characterize this right. You're assuming it's a land sale. You
Certainly.
have no evidence to
Certainly.
suggest. Okay.
Yes.
Now, when you add this base building purchase of 838 and the permit of 989, I get 1,827,000. So are you relying on that cost?
No.
Well, you brought it in here, so I just want to
Yes.
make sure we understand.
Yes.
You're not relying on it.
Nope, just an indicator of what the building permit value was.
Okay. Do you have any indication when the building permits were closed?
That I do not have on me.
So I'm just wondering how the date was selected for March. The effective date of this change was March 2020, correct?
Yeah,
March-
I can tell you that because
March
I have
5th?
notes from the assessor that went out to the property.
Okay.
On January the 13th of 2020, there was a assessor went out to the property, did a exterior inspection to the property and left a card. And so in that case, there was no response to the card, and the effective age for adjustment, the effective date for adjustment was February the 1st of 2020. But that doesn't affect this assessment because we're not dealing with an appeal of 2020, we're dealing with 2021.
Sorry, I just want to double check something here.
Yeah, let me double check too, because it's showing up here as 2020, but
Yeah.
I have it as 2021.
Right. Yeah, this is 20, just maybe you could check with the secretary,
Yeah.
what the
Is it a
application form?
is it a supplemental, or do you know?
For this property?
Yeah,
Yeah, this is the 2027.
okay, sorry, it is then, sorry.
Okay. This is a 2020 stuff.
Yeah.
Not a 2021.
Yeah, all the same comparables would be in effect. The only thing is we put it on the roll on February 1st of 2020. So it would be the same comparables because we're looking at the same dates. It's just that we're looking at including 2020 and 2021 if we're doing an adjustment.
All right, so 2020 has been appealed and 2021 has not.
Correct. No, both are, according to this.
I do not see a listing here for a 2021 appeal.
Yeah, when we filed it, we did check with the manager of appeals. At the point in time when we filed the carry forward case, which was Qualico at Queen's Bench, had been determined and accepted that an appeal of a supplemental within the same reference dates was to be carried forward. So we do have confirmation on that we did not need to file a 21. So, but that's fine. We are, and that's an administrative matter the board doesn't have to be concerned with. I just want to make sure that we're talking about a value for 2020. So getting back to my question, so an assessor was out January 13th, left a card, and was put on the roll as an approved building February 1st.
Correct.
And that's all the information you have on that subject?
Yes, that's the information I have.
Now, did you check with permits? They're online now and you can.
Yeah, we don't generally go by the permit date because the permit date, the inspectors could go out 2 or 3 months after the time that it's completed. So that's just a generalized date for us. It's not a specific date as to when it was done. The assessor who was out there would have determined that it was substantially completed at the time that he was out there before he added it.
You're aware that commercial licensed contractors carry a different responsibility for closing permits than a person, correct?
I don't deal with commercial.
You're not aware that they have different reporting requirements for closing permits?
I don't do commercial.
But you did put in here that Art Gross Builders, commercial contractor, did perform the construction.
It's residential construction. It doesn't matter who the builder was.
A commercial operator, someone who builds houses.
I don't know they're a commercial operator. It's made out to Art Gross Builders.
Okay, so you don't know this.
No, I don't know who they are.
And you're not aware that a licensed contractor carries a different responsibility for closing off the permits? That there are different rules in place for them, different methods of reporting? That they can self-close permits as required and get confirmation later, for example?
I do not know.
Okay. So then you aren't aware that the permit for a permit number, and it's on mine, 163982 is still open?
The building permit for this property?
That's correct.
No.
And that is the one that it's in your presentation?
Yeah, the one that was taken out on November the 7th.
Right. You're aware that this is still open?
No,
You're not aware? Okay.
no. As I said, I don't generally take a look at that because they can come into any time.
And have you yourself performed any form of inspection?
No, because there was an assessor out there and he did the inspection, and so it's doubling duty.
All right. The comparables that you've selected, I'm curious about something. We have an assessment of over $2 million, but not a single one of your sales exceeds 1.2 million.
Right.
How do we know 2 million exists?
There's very few out there.
Well, and that's my question. How do we know it exists?
Well, because there are houses that sell for 2 million.
Okay, but you haven't brought this board any evidence of that, have you? I'm talking about a total value, talking about a socioeconomic determination of can people in our city afford $2 million homes?
Yes.
Then so you haven't brought this board evidence that they have sold, have you?
I didn't.
Okay.
I was aware that I needed to.
Now on your sales, you have two that are in the same neighborhood, which is the 631 Wellington Crescent neighborhood. And they range from $309 to $328, but you went outside this to Park Boulevard, and those ones are significantly higher at 515 to 536. Is this appropriate?
I went outside of the area to find houses that were comparable. The two comparables in Wellington were not comparable properties.
Comparable in which way?
Age.
Okay.
Size.
Size. Okay, that's interesting. You said size. Your two that you have most heavily relied on are smaller, correct? They're 2,300 and 2,400 square feet. The subject is 3,900. The two in the area are 3,200. So the ones in the neighborhood are actually closer in size than the ones outside the area that you
Correct.
relied on. Okay. Does the concept of economy of scale not come into play here? A larger home?
It can.
Then, but you ended up going to over $500 a square foot, which was the smaller homes, correct? In the
The newer
different, in a
homes?
different neighborhood.
The newer home.
Okay, that you say are newer, but are also smaller and in a different neighborhood, correct?
If you say so.
Well, they're smaller. It's not my opinion.
All of the houses that we saw are smaller. There's no other house that sold for 4,000 square feet.
The two that you relied on the most heavily, as you just said,
Mhm.
are much smaller than both the subject and the other two comparables, correct?
They are smaller.
And they are in different neighborhoods than
They
the
are.
other three. Okay. In term, now these other four homes that you have for sales, where did the sales information come from?
I'm sorry.
Where did you get your sales information?
From our computer system.
Okay, were any of them advertised or sold on MLS?
I don't have that information with me.
Do you know whether or not they were exposed to the market for sale?
I do not know that.
Is that not a requirement in determining if they meet the standards of market value to see if they were marketed
Because they are in
properly?
our database, I would assume that they did.
Okay, so it's an assumption.
Yes.
Now, most homes in Canada do go through the MLS system or some form of exposure to the marketplace. Even Comfrey now goes on MLS. You're aware of that?
Purple bricks?
Or whoever they are today, or whoever they'll be tomorrow, they can now advertise on MLS. Now, is not a requirement to meet market value exposure to the marketplace?
There's different ways it can be exposed to the marketplace. Just because it's not listed on the MLS doesn't mean it's not exposed.
Oh, all right, then tell us how they were exposed to the marketplace.
If there's a $2 million house for sale, all the people that are out there that are selling $2 million houses are quite aware that that house would be for sale.
How do they become aware?
By word of mouth.
Okay, I'm gonna submit that's entirely incorrect, but that's fine.
So you're telling me.
That's your answer, fine. Now, in regard to 320 Park Boulevard, who was the vendor?
I don't know.
You're not aware that it was a Manitoba Limited Company?
I don't know.
Okay. Well, that one was advertised on MLS. So when you see that a limited company rather than an individual person sells a house, do you not have some concerns that it might not meet the standards of market value?
It met the market value standards as for our documentation.
The 209 Grenfell property, did you review its listing? Sorry, let me just back up one question. Are you aware that the agent who posted the listing for 320 Park Boulevard is using a different square footage than the one you have?
Yes,
So which is accurate?
for 320 Park Boulevard,
Yes.
I would submit that ours is correct. Generally, when there's a difference between the MLS and ours, it's because they don't include or they don't adjust for if there's open area in the house.
So you're saying that a realtor who loses his license if he doesn't measure to an appropriate standard lacks the accuracy of an assessor who's never been out to see a property?
The assessment would have been done based on the plans that were submitted.
Has an assessor been on the property to measure?
I don't know. I told you I don't
But
know.
you're aware that a realtor stated here, I'm looking at the listing, that he went out and measured the house. And
Okay.
that's not as good as an assessment measurement.
I'm
42?
not saying that. I'm saying that they may be measured differently than we did.
Have you read the decision municipal board on?
No, I haven't.
On standards of measurements? I can tell you the date was 2005. The home
Thank
was
you.
42 Canyon Ridge. And that they went to the board of revision to the municipal board because of the same issue, that the assessor has different measuring systems. And you're aware that in that case, they quite clearly took out this open area that you were speaking about as not being accessible nor measurable by anyone. Are you aware of that?
No.
Okay. It was my home. Now, in regard to Grenfell, same question there. You are aware that the realtor who measured the home for the expired listing came up with a different number than what you're presenting?
No.
A higher number?
No.
So again, you're not relying on that.
We were relying on the building blueprints that were submitted to us.
Okay. The measurement adjustments, or sorry, the value adjustments that you have here, how are these done? Is this done by area, by type, or is this a bulk measurement across the city?
Which value adjustments?
You've got time adjusted sale prices. How do these occur? What's the database for this?
That is determined with the computer database.
So do you know how it's done?
I don't do it, no.
Okay, so do you know whether or not it includes data for the entire city, whether it includes different forms of houses, or is
Well, it will include data for the whole city, but I don't know whether they split it up into areas.
Okay. Okay. So a home on Wellington Crescent may not have its own indication of time adjusted
No.
value. Okay.
No.
And sorry, I'm just double checking. I had. Those are my questions. Thank you.
Mr. Garrity, do you have?
Oh,
a
sorry,
question?
I made a mistake. Sorry.
One more?
Yes, I just noticed something. Now, you're calling this a one-story, correct?
Yes, that's what it was assessed as,
Right.
according to the blueprints that we got.
I see. All right, thank you.
Ms. Garrity, questions?
The question I had was in regard to something that Mr. Neufeld brought up, so I might have to wait till we get into his paperwork. Okay? It was to do with that permit being open still, or possibly being open still.
Okay, why don't we wait for his evidence then?
Will do.
Okay. Mr. Moretsky, questions?
So if you get to the value of 2,087,000, you went strictly by the comparables. Is that
No, the
correct?
computer would have come up with the number based on various changes in square footage, bathrooms, bedrooms, size. The computer actually generates this value for us. It's not a value I came up with. It's a value I need to defend.
Okay, but you're defending it based on the comparables.
Yes.
So we're basically saying the same. What about the totals for the permit and the demolition, which was pretty recent? That was and the tear down, the land was 838. So that's a total of 1,852,000. So did you take that into consideration that that's less than 2,087,000?
I did take it into consideration that it supported that the value that we had on it was reasonable, and that generally when permits are taken out, that's not generally the cost that they are. It's an estimated cost.
What does the computer then base its
The
value on?
computer doesn't use the permit values at all. Computer will not take permit values into consideration, and the only reason I did was to support that the reasonableness of the $2,087,000 valuation. It only takes comparables into consideration.
Well, yeah, we could go on about the computer, how it works, but
Unfortunately, that's what we have. That's what we use.
yeah, I know I won't get the answers I'm looking for there. So. Okay, so then you're using the comparables to defend 2,087,000.
Correct.
All right, no further questions.
And with Mr. Moretsky here, Your basic logic here seems to be that you provided comparables that are smaller in livable space, smaller lots, less value on sale. You're basically saying, well, the subject ain't like them, therefore it's more. How do you arrive at the specific 2087 as being defended by these that are so different?
I'm using the per square footage basis of the sale prices for the two largest, or for the two newest properties.
And yet those are substantially different properties from the subject.
But they're 2014 and 2012, which is closer to 2020. I mean, you're not going to find another 4,000 square foot property in the city that sold in 2020 to be able to use it.
So you have to do some imputing.
Right.
You do not then take into account economy of scale and impute some value lower than 521 or 561.
It was in the range.
That's all my questions. Mr. Neufeld?
Thank you. I have on my report, which was emailed in, I do have some rebuttal information as well. And I have a
Copies?
of course. Well, can I hold one up to the camera?
If you describe it sufficiently well, then Ms. Garrity can
it'll be clear.
You may have to take some notes, Ms. Garrity.
Okay. I've been doing that.
I'll start with the rebuttal information. It's relatively simple. This is the owner's former house. And you can see it's still advertised on the market. They put it on the market May 19th, 2020. That's the list date above. And possession to be TBA, which is part of negotiation. At this point in time in May, they were gearing for a summer sale to move from old house to new house. So they were still in the house. I just wanted to show you that now the rest of the information will just go to my report. Now we actually, I've driven past this several times and I haven't been in it yet. But we have a different rule of thumb in this new day and age of where building codes are changing as to when is a building complete. Now you can see that below the main permit has not been closed. The builder is a commercially licensed contractor. They have responsibilities to close permits or they lose their privileges or they have problems with PP&D. There's a trust situation that they're in where they can actually apply for permits and get them approved in a speedier fashion. The requirement is that they've got to close them when they're done and the work isn't finished. And the permit shows that it's not done. Now, what we're going to suggest is a date change from February 1st to August 1st. And I have a brand new method of deciding when a building's finished. And I'm hoping the world adopts it, or Winnipeg adopts it. It's when the porta potty gets taken off the site. Because, you know, building code now requires, if you are taking a permit, you've got to drop a toilet off and park it in front of your site on Wellington Crescent. So the potty was still there in July. They were still working on it and it's gone now. So I think it's gone now. So number one, the permits are still open. The owner wasn't living in it and August 1st would be the effective date. Getting to value, I think the biggest problem with valuing a home in this price category is the lack of proof that a $2 million sale actually exists. Now, I know in Manitoba there have been 10 sales that have exceeded $2 million on MLS. I know this because it's a constant source of that we have to go look into. Most of them were in either Winnipeg or in Headingley and for newer homes. So there are three on Wellington in the area that we had found. One was post dated and one was just the one on the river. We were looking for non-river sales. So we did find 123 Hansard, which sold for $2,400,000, 6,000 square feet. And the listing for it is on page 4. So you can see it is new construction. And it's a little bit more, a few more features than the subject has. For example, the in-ground pool, the winter rink, and theater. The subject property isn't that as developed as that. There are a few others that we're aware of. Now, there's another property I know that sold for $2.7 million, which is much bigger. We weren't going to on Kerrs Lake, but the rest of these were just to try to round out the market, to try to find newer construction in the Wellington area that was not on the river. And we did manage to find 9 homes that were between 3,600 square feet and 6,000 square feet, with a range of sale prices between $249 to $410 per square foot, with the average at $305. And these all came from MLS. So they were exposed to the market, and they were, the measurements for them were done by a realtor. And I love making realtor jokes, but as far as square footage goes, that's what you lose your license for if you get it wrong, or you report it wrong, or you don't do it with the correct procedure. Their standards are, from my experience, a much more professional and consistent, that's the key word, consistent, than the assessment ones, because they're all based on, they're required to have inspections. Now, there was a case I mentioned in 2005, my own home, where we had this exact dispute on whose measurements were more valid. I can tell you the municipal board went and decided that it was the professional standards, ABOMA for commercial, MLS, well, not MLS itself, but the realtors for residential, and the Appraisal Institute at that time had also published a booklet as well on how appraisers are to measure properties. It's to avoid the open air space, and don't call that area. It's a feature, but it's not measurable square footage. The treatment of sunrooms is always a major issue too. They don't get counted. Basements don't get counted. It's just to make sure we have standards of comparison that makes sense. So we had all of these properties, and oh, sorry, I'm gonna just back up a bit on the construction. You know, I'd asked the assessor about some dates. So the family purchased this lot in 2016 and engaged a contractor to redevelop the existing property. It wasn't intended to be a rebuild. It was to be a redevelopment at a much lower cost. And after looking at what they could do with the lands, there were many, many issues that they faced. And I was working with them on some of them. Like, I was trying to see if we could apply for another access point, because it is a larger lot. That was denied. Eventually, with the architectural restrictions they had and the lack of adaptability to the building to what they wanted, they had to decide to demolish and rebuild. So it did end up being a costlier project than they had budgeted for. And that's, again, the danger of relying on sales and calling them land sales without knowing the whole story behind it. So we have a number of sales. I've told you the one that I think is the most reliable. Now, like the assessor, we sometimes just deal with not automated, but more systemic mass appraisal. On a mass appraisal basis, we're going to punch in all our sales. We're going to find an average, and we're going to apply it to it, and that comes up to 1.2 million. I think that on a site specific, that's a bit on the low side. I think the home on Hansard is the closest, although it is superior and it is larger. So I would push the range upwards to the other homes in there. The next lowest comparable after the Hansard property, just to deal with quality, and that's at 385 a square foot. That's just my opinion. And that would actually end up being a value of 1,526,140 at 385 a foot, rounded to 1,526,000. Yeah, that's the next highest one. I find that the first one lacks reliability for quality, so I just went to Burnley, and it's closer to the subject sale price. And if you look at the picture of Burnley, it's really, really small. Some people call the design modern, some people call it ugly, but it's the same style of building. And the subject itself, I haven't been in it, but I thought it was a 1+2 story, but again, I haven't been in it.
And you did a calculation there at 385?
Correct.
For the subject property, and that calculation came out to what?
1,526,140, rounded to 1,526,000.
As opposed to your figure on page 1?
That's correct. That's correct. And that's just more of a mass appraisal look at it. And I think that there's a couple of reasons you could go higher than a mass appraisal technique on this, because it does have a prestige address and people will pay a little bit more for that. And so the qualitatively, I think I would push it to the high end of the proven range, and we're staying outside of, we're not going to far areas. We're not looking at 2,500 square foot homes, because honestly, that's just an artificial way to boost your rate. Take a smaller home, get the rate per square foot, apply it to the bigger home and say, see, there's our value. That's not proper procedure. You got to stick with the size for one and the neighborhood. And the differences on condition and age, well, I just ask you, I'm not going to read them all, but if you read through my comps, pages 4 to 8, they all speak quite highly of these properties, but people always do in the advertising. But we are also trying to impress upon the board that these were exposed to the market. And that's another important issue. So the market ended up deciding this. So that's my basic presentation on 1000 Wellington.
Questions, sir?
I do have questions. Is there a reason that all of your comparables are 2-story and 2.5-story properties? There's one comparable that's a bungalow, when this property is a bungalow.
Well, as I mentioned, we're under the impression it was a 1+2 story, and I don't think it's a bungalow. I think it's a mixed level building.
But you haven't been in the building, you haven't?
That's correct.
Okay. And have you seen the floor plans for it, the blueprints for it?
I can't remember. Honestly, I can't remember.
Okay.
But that would have to be a no then.
Okay, because the floor plans and the blueprints that we would have received is what we would have used to indicate that it was a bungalow. So that's why none of the comparable properties that you're listing are properties that I would have considered, because there's a difference.
Well, you can say that for argument, but the difference on a bungalow and a 2-story, when we're talking about prestige location, is far different than one in a tract neighborhood. And it's going to, the spread is much, much closer.
Right, but there is a spread.
Well, I haven't proven that. I think one of the problems with the bungalow sales is that there's a lack of data at a certain size range in bungalows. And people just aren't building 4,000 square foot bungalows.
So I'm assuming that there's a reason why None of the comparables I used, even though they fed into your parameters, showed up on the list?
Well, no, the reason your comparables were totally unsuitable is that we only found one that was exposed to MLS, the rest weren't. There's no data on them, and I think it fails to meet the definition of market value.
Which one was with MLS?
The Park Avenue was on MLS, and it was a builder's sale.
Okay. But you chose not to use that.
Well, it's way too small.
Okay.
I
So-
mean, it doesn't matter whether it was a bungalow or a two-story, it's just way too small.
So,
And Park Avenue, Wellington, there's some similarities there. But in terms of people wanting a nice prestige address, but again, the size differential is just too big of a gap.
well, that will explain why my comparables are completely different than yours, because we're using 1 story and all of yours are 2 story. We wouldn't compare the two. We wouldn't use the two.
Well, I'm going to pretend that was a question. The problem is that you're throwing away or making an argument on style and completely forgetting that the size, which is a clear objective measurement. So you're saying, oh, your subjective is no good, but my lack of objectivity is good.
So in your opinion, there's no difference between a 2 story and a 1 story when you're looking at per square foot?
Well, no, I'm just saying that a prestige location, it's not as great a factor as the location and the size. And
So
and I'm characterizing the house as being a 1+2.
Okay, so this Burnley that you used, that's a 2 story, that's $385 per square foot. You're saying if it had 4,000 square feet on 1 level versus 4,000 square feet over 2 levels, that it would, both of them would come out $385 a square foot.
No, I'm saying that people who are looking for a prestige home are going to pay $385 a foot. And they're not going to say, oh, I'll pay $550 a foot because it's a bungalow. They're not going to do it. It's we reached a question of where you have the cost resistance. You're trying to crawl over $2 million. Now, the socioeconomic answer on it is that one looks at earning power, and to afford a home of this level requires you to be in the upper 0.5% of earning in our country, and there just aren't a lot of people who are in there and are going to compete for it. So the market is quite different. When it becomes a lower amount of your earnings, you're not worried about hitting that 40% mortgage or loan ratio to support your paying for your house. It really just changes the rules.
So what you're saying is because the majority of people can't afford a $2 million house, that makes this not a $2 million.
No, what I'm saying is that once you get past the right now probably 1.2, 1.3 million, where it's in the realm of homes that are financially affordable by a lower percentage of the population, a lot of the rules that people think are hard and fast go away, because now it's not a question of am I a bungalow, am I a 2-story? It's more a question of, do I have the right address and location? Do I have the amenities? Do I want a 3-car garage or do I want a 5-car garage? And when you're in a lower value of homes, and I'm not trying to, of course, comment on anybody, but this is just the reality that as your price ability to pay goes lower, then all of these factors become stronger. And that's.
So what you're saying is that address has somewhat to do with the price that you're paying. So would you say 26 Burnley Place and 1,000 Wellington would have the same impact as far as somebody paying extra money for an address?
No, I'm saying that's the best that the market can prove that it's going to support 1,000 at Wellington.
But would you think that 1,000 Wellington would be worth more because of the address? because of the location,
Um,
because of the street name?
you know, I've never done a study on it, but I think that,
I'm just asking your
yes,
opinion.
I know, and then just want to make sure I clarify my opinion. I know many people who would say, I'm willing to spend a little bit more money to be on Park Boulevard or Wellington Crescent. They tell them the truth. They're paying more for the address, and you know, how much more? 50,000, 100,000. That's the sort of level we're talking about, not 500,000 more. And so it's certainly correct. I think that's a safe assumption, but to quantify it, it's not big money.
Okay. No further questions.
Ms. Garrity, questions?
I guess I was wondering earlier what the effect of the permit still being open, the dollars and cents that they estimate were 989,000. But if it's still open, does that mean that number could be higher, or is there a way to know that?
Oh, not sure if there's a requirement to report actual expenditures, but the reasons for the delay were actually based on, there was a civic approval delay on, we were trying to change the approach, and that delayed construction start. So I don't think it was necessarily a problem they were facing. It was just a start time issue with the planning. I don't have the report on the as-built costs. Well, I guess the invoice hasn't been processed yet.
Okay, so that's all we can go on then, is that's an estimate.
Right.
Okay.
But there are fines if a contractor tries to, fudge the numbers. That has changed. 10 years ago, and I'm just, kind of speaking frankly, many contractors were pretty open to putting a permit. Some people like to see a higher permit value, some like to see a lower. If you tried to do that today with a licensed contractor, they would say, you've got no say in this. I'm putting the number on that I think is right. It is far more reliable these days on an estimate of costs. But I think what you said earlier about could there have been as-built problems, yes, those usually though show up in conversions rather than new builds.
Okay. Thank you.
Boretsky.
Yeah, I thought you had mentioned during your presentation that you had found 4 properties exceeding $2 million in that area, or around about that area?
Yeah, yes.
Why didn't you put those on?
Okay. Well, one was the Asper Mansion on the river, but it's like in a different world. It's a one-off. The other was a a site where it was bulldozed and rebuilt, and it was post-reference. It was a 2019 sale, and it was on Lamont. The third one we put in, and the fourth one was an older sale from Kerrs Lake, which was embroiled in divorces and problems. It sold for $2.7 million, and there's a dispute before the board where I'm representing them because furnishings were sold with it, and it was a 5,000 square foot, essentially a 2-story or a 1-story walkout. Some people, you call it what you want, but it was a 2-story. I sold for $2.7 million. It was 5,800 feet. That's a decent comp, and it supports what I'm saying here. Although the sale was from 2014 or 15, and the other problem with it is there were, after the sale, it was discovered there were some defects in it. So we didn't want to bring that one forward. It was loaded with problems. So anything else we found, we put in. The other ones, actually, no, I think there was one on, was it Loudon or out in that area? And then the rest I found were in Headingley on Marston Meadows.
So you seem to be focusing on this 26 Burnley Place as kind of the main thrust of your assessment. If I can just mention that it was built in 1992, correct?
That's, yes.
So, I would say that probably if they haven't done any renovations to that place, the interior is probably getting out of date there in 1992, right? Wouldn't you say so?
Well, I'm just reading it here. I'm not entirely sure, but in homes like this, that you could say that the subject is out of date already because they went with what's called a modern look, a square look. I think this is just a feature of these buildings. It's worth considering, but that brings me back to my first point. How do you prove a higher number exists if you don't have any data that will actually support it? There's still a barrier to sale prices, which is not simply take the price per square foot and say, well, let's extrapolate and apply it to our house. There's still a money barrier. We're not Vancouver, where a $20 million home happens fairly frequently. We're Winnipeg, and we're limited. So I guess that's my problem with this.
Okay. What is the lot size on the Burnley place?
They've got a 103 foot depth by 100 foot frontage. So that's 108 by 103. So I don't know, that's to be about 11,000 feet, somewhere in there.
What's the subject property?
22,000.
And Burnley is Old Tuxedo?
Burnley is Tuxedo, yeah. Yeah, right.
Far away from
yeah, it's probably some distance away. The Hansard is obviously the best, the closest comparison to it, but it's 2,000 square feet bigger, and honestly, I picked that because 385, and if someone said, well, it should be Hansard, I'm not going to disagree. This isn't tract homes, so we're not going to be able to argue like $5 a square foot here or there. The one that came in at 410 is also a very good, reliable market indicator. The accuracy of the per square foot supports Burnley.
Okay, no further questions.
I need to know specifically where Burnley Place is. Where is it?
I believe it is off West Taylor. I know we can now use our phones here, so I'll tell you, unless you've looked it up.
If you can refer us to where we would find it.
Yeah.
We would all find it on our phones, should we choose to do so.
Well, here the listing is called what's our construction Tuxedo, neighborhood Tuxedo. So I'm looking at Hansard, Kerslake, Burnley. They're all called Tuxedo in the MLS world. So that doesn't give. Okay, it's a 1E. So that's all inside that general area 1E.
I can interject. Burnley is just to the north of West Taylor Boulevard, if that helps.
Just to the north of West Taylor and parallels
And
West Taylor?
very, very close to Shaftesbury. So it's very close to the corner of Shaftesbury and West Taylor.
Okay,
Yeah.
That'll do me. Thank you very much. That's my only question. That draws to a conclusion 1,000 Wellington.
Sorry, I need 5
One
minutes.
more question.
We will, sorry, you have a question?
I just have one about that assessment, the 2021 assessment on there versus the 2020 that we're talking about, the 2020 sale. It was mentioned earlier, but I don't know what effect it has on this.
The effect it has is the date that it is applied. We're looking at the same sales period, so all of the sales that we're discussing would be the same for 2020 and 2021. What the difference is we're saying that we added the property as of February the 1st, based on the information that we had, and he's saying it should have been put on as of August 1st.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you. We will take 5 minutes as a short break, and then we'll come back with 89 Braemar.
I did, yes, thank you.
Okay, we will resume with 89 Braemar. We have 2 years here, 2019 and 2020. These are both SUPs. And we have 2 different reference dates for the 2 of them, correct?
Correct.
And we're just dealing with value here. All right.
Do you want to deal with them separately or at the same time?
You know, the values are going to be quite a bit different. Let's deal with them separately.
Okay.
Well, after judging here, they're going to be quite a bit
19
different. I should just say they're different. So let's deal with the 2019 to start off with, and let us go through all of the 2019, and then we'll move on.
Okay, sounds good. Okay, the subject property is 89 Braemar Avenue. It's parcel ID 0608171800. It's located in the Northwood East area. It's a 1 3/4 story property. It was built in 1945, but this property, the reason there's a supplementary on it is it's had significant addition added to the property and renovations done. We have estimated the effective age on that property to be 1985. Now the total square footage is 1621 square feet. It has a full part basement, and that basement is finished. It has a detached multiple car garage, and sorry, there's a typo there. It's 2018 is when the garage was built, 720 square feet. We have that property assessed at $417,000. As you can see, I've listed the permits just for a reference. So the permits were taken out there was an addition to the property which had a kitchen in that property for $100,000. There was a garage demo of an older garage. There was a new garage permit for $35,000. And there's also a permit taken out for a basement finish, but there is no value on that permit. The comparables that I have, I would say comparable 1 is superior and comparable 2, 3, and 4 are inferior to the property. Tried to find ones that had been updated a little bit in order to determine, because as we all know, a 1945 original house is not going to be the same. So the superior one was built in 2014 and sold for $409,500. So at $315 a square foot, that would be superior. So that would be above where we would go. The 3 that are inferior, one is on 146 Eugenie, one at 279 Eugenie, and one at 242 Kitson. And those ones, Eugenie has a 40-year effective age. The Eugenie, 279 Eugenie has a 50-year effective age. And the 242 Kitson Avenue has a 30-year effective age, which is just our estimate of the improvement of the property with the renovations that have been done towards it. All of them have basement finish except 279 Eugenie. There's no basement finish. And the only property that has a garage is 146 Eugenie. It was built in 2014. So the property per square foot runs between about $197,000 to about $197 a square foot to $315 a square foot. Probably the most reasonable one, well, it's hard to say, the most reasonable one, the closest one in 40-year age difference, and the closest one in size, even though it's 200 square feet smaller, and it also has a garage, is the property for $196.91 per square foot. And that is and we're asking that there's no value change to the assessment for 417.
Questions?
Yes, sorry, just clarify, one comparable number 2, 146 Eugenie, was your thought to being the closest in comparison?
As far as a 40-year age difference and as far as size, and there's a garage, but the garage is half the size. It's 200 square feet smaller, and it's an original 1920s property. So it's still about 25 years older than the property we're dealing with.
No, I understand what closest means. I was just wondering, I just want to make sure I heard that correctly. So just questions on the comparables just to get out of the way. 92 Hill Street, you're aware that it was listed at 1,330 square feet by the realtor?
No.
Okay. And 146 Eugenie, the realtor listed it at 1,502 square feet. You're aware of that?
As I said, we use the blueprints and our own numbers. So if their numbers are different than ours, we have no verification as who's correct.
And 279 Eugenie, you're aware it was listed at 1,232 square feet? Just to confirm, you don't know.
Yeah, I haven't
I
got
just
any information on any of these properties.
Just exercising my right to read these into the record, okay? So 242 Kitson, you're not aware that the realtors said it was 1,311 square feet?
No.
Okay, so all 4 of these have different numbers from MLS than what you have. If you take my word for it, that I'm reading from MLS.
Correct.
Okay.
We don't know which one's correct, but they are all different.
Now, you believe that the subject is correct? The dimensions?
The subject is as correct as I know it.
Have you measured it?
No.
You haven't been to the site?
No, we
Has
cannot do inspections.
any assessor been to the site?
Yes. I don't know when they were out there, but it was.
What was the original size of the building? Do you have that? Before the changes were made?
The original size of the building?
Yes.
The main and the second additional area. I have 1222 if I've written my numbers down correct.
1222 was the original?
The original.
And so you're stating that an expansion ended up adding 400 square feet?
381 square feet.
Okay, well, that doesn't add up. You got 1621 here, and you said 1221. Oh, you're just making my math easy.
So those are the numbers I have. I'm not sure why we don't have it. But my understanding is that the addition was 261 square feet on the second floor and an additional area of 120 square feet.
Well, this is your, did you supply this permit?
Yes.
Okay, and on it, it says permit to construct 190 square foot rear addition. And then it says 672 square foot second floor addition. Those numbers aren't close to what you have. And I think I heard you say earlier that you're looking at permits. And,
Well, I could have written something down wrong.
okay. Now, no one's been out to measure the house. Okay,
Not
now,
as far as I know.
what is this characterized as a house? What style of house? You have it?
Calling it a two-story.
I see on your paper, your brief, it says 1 3/4.
Sorry, 1 3/4, yeah.
And 3 of your comparables are 2 stories, and the 4th is a 1 3/4.
Correct.
What measurement standard do you use for a 1 3/4 story?
I'm not sure what your
Well,
question
you've
is.
got a floor plate, right?
Right,
And there is some adjustment for the roof that is
right.
done.
I don't have that information off the top of my head.
Okay. So because they call it a 1 3/4, there's often a 25% deduction in usable floor area for standardizing measurements, thereabouts. Fair to say? And then a 1 1/2 story is generally a 50% deduction for unusable floor because of the angle of the roof makes that unusable. Now, in that respect, do you think the comparables should have all been 1 3/4 story?
If we had enough 1 3/4 stories, that's what I would have used.
Okay. Now, in the permit, it says nothing about demolition of an older space, does it?
Not as far as I can see. There's a garage demo.
Okay. And again, going back to the concept of economy of scale, which in a home with more sales becomes more pointed. All of your comparables are a fair degree smaller than your subject, are they not?
Correct.
And are you not going to have a higher price per square foot on a smaller home in this style?
Possibly.
You brought in the information on the permits. What is your how much are you relying on these?
Not at all.
Okay, good.
They're only a backup for the information because we usually get asked about the
And do you have any knowledge of what happened during the building process?
permit. No information at all.
And other than what you present here, do you know what changes were done to the home?
The addition, I believe, has a kitchen in it. They tore down an old garage and built a 720 square foot garage. And they have basement development done.
Now, you mentioned the basement was finished. Have you personally inspected that?
No,
Now, isn't that permit still open?
I don't know.
Okay. I was in it. Okay, those are my questions.
Ms. Garrity, do you have questions?
I just wondered how the 417 was arrived at.
It's a computer generated number.
Computer generated. Okay, thank you.
Mr. Maretsky?
No, I don't have any questions.
The effective age change going from 1945 to 1985. We know what the permits address, but was there anything in the portion of the house that was not added to? It was a kitchen addition. Is there anything that was done in that part of the house? Or is the effective age only attributable to the kitchen addition? That effective age change?
The effective age would have been attributable to the additional square footage and the kitchen and the bathroom. Or sorry, and the just the kitchen that was added onto. Yeah. And the addition.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
The kitchen is part of the addition.
You've got permits for kitchen addition, 100,000.
Mm-hmm. The kitchen
Then there
did,
was some basement developed.
yeah,
An unknown amount.
right, unknown
Permit
amount,
there.
yeah. But there was a kitchen addition, 190 square feet of the kitchen addition. And then there was a 45-foot square covered deck in the rear. And then there was a 672 square foot second floor addition.
Did the second floor addition get covered by that April 6th, 27th?
I believe it's all in the same one. Yeah, it's all the same
Okay,
permit.
so it's a kitchen plus.
Yeah.
Addition.
Yeah.
So, okay, so there was a substantial additional amount. Elsewhere in the house, though, with the exception of the basement development, you are not aware of any other changes?
No, I'm not
It
aware.
could still wind up looking like a 1945 house?
Right, right.
Okay. All my questions. Mr. Neufeld?
Thank you. So I have inspected this home. I know it quite well. The dimensions the city assessor have are completely wrong. Relying on the permits is a horrible mistake. The home was an older home, and you've seen my sketch, and I drew the sketch myself and put down these measurements myself. The plan area of the original building was 24 by 30. And it was a story and a half in its original construction when it was built. So that would make 720 feet on the main floor, and by proper measurement standards, another 360 on the upper floor. That's 1080 plus at a later date, don't know when, an addition of 10 by 7 was built on the back. So at the time, the proper measurement would have been around 1150 square feet prior to the renovations, which doesn't matter anymore. Now, when the renovations occurred, the rear portion at the back was demolished, and then the 190 square feet was rebuilt on top of that. And there's the first error the city made. They never took off the old space.
Yes, we did.
I know you didn't. Don't argue with me. I was out there measuring it. You can ask me questions. And I'm get mad when people make mistakes, and I'm not saying you personally, but the city makes measurement mistakes. All you have to do is go out with the tape measure. So there's error number one. So the main floor is 720 square feet plus 190 square foot addition. That's what exists. The upper floor, the trusses were changed. And what they went to on the trusses were a modified pitch on the roof. So the front pitch remained the same to make it look like the neighborhood, and the rear pitch was increased, which gave them some more livable space in the roof. Effectively going from a 1.5 story to a 1 3/4 story. So the plan area of the roof still remains the same, being 30 by 24. However, the usable space, the way you measure it, is you have to deal with the pitch in the walls. And they made it quite easy because they didn't go straight down to the floor. They actually walled it off. So there are 4.5 foot walls on the sides, and they're counting that as their livable space. So that works out to an actual measurement of 20 by 30 measured. The 30, of course, stays the same, and then the 20 is a loss of 2 feet on each side. That's how it's been finished off. That works out to 1,510 square feet. And that is the correct measurement. And I think that making measurement decisions from permits is misses a lot. So that's the major issue here, is that the square footage is completely wrong. And it is a 1 3/4 style now. So what we did is we compared it to other buildings in the neighborhood, and looking at my report, you can see in page 3, I've given you my sketches. This is my writing. And now you'll see that whereas I have new, that I have 720, 190, and 540. That was my measurement at the time, using a different style of measurement because I don't care for 4.5 foot walls. I said I believe the proper way to do it is to take the 720 and discount it by 25%. But they have walled it off, so we're gonna use their number, which is a little bit higher, at 600. That adds up to 1,510 square feet. The numbers that I have from the old measurement, as near as I can figure out, were 790 on the main and 455 on the second, and I've written that on the side. And that would have been what the assessment department showed, but we still would have a difference of opinion, not of opinion, of measurement standards on that second floor, but it really doesn't matter anymore. It's now 1510. So what we did is we looked at sales, and they're all summarized on page 1. We looked at 1.5 and a few 1 3/4 stories in the neighborhood. They ranged from a low of 161 to a high of 241, with a mean of 214 a square foot. And on that basis, we applied the mean as a mass appraisal technique, and the properties are all listed from page 4 onwards, and some of them, you know, as you glance through there, 104 Braemar, lots of upgrades, and 505 Dismuron talks about the upgrades and what they've done on it. So they've all had work done on them, and this is what's needed to support valuation is make sure we're not dealing with properties that are old and run down. For example, 48 Crawford, vendor states 45,000 spent on both, meaning his kitchen. And that's what we're relying on for a value of 323,000. And as to the permits, the permits ended up being isn't what the original intent. The original intent on this home was to flip it. The plan was to change the roof and put the addition on. But in the process, a tragic personal event occurred. And so the permits don't really matter. Just something happened. They changed their view on it and ended up living it themselves. No.
Questions?
So the ones that you have listed here, would you estimate that all of them have had improvements similar to the Hill Street property or the Braemar Street property?
I'm just glancing through them, and most of them describe some work being done on it, fairly significant work.
Hundreds of thousands, like 100,000 plus?
I'm not entirely sure.
Okay. And I noticed here that no further questions.
Ms. Garrett.
No questions. Thank you.
Mr. Moretsky.
So what is the your revised total square foot for this?
It's listed as it is. It's 1,510 square feet is the actual square footage, proper method of measurement, and we're applying that at with a value of the mean of 214.10 a square foot.
Okay. So not the addition, it's the total square footage.
Right. It's the total measured square footage after construction is 1,510 square feet.
No further questions.
And the basement is not finished. They're working on it. When was I in there? A couple weeks ago.
I am familiar with some of these addresses, or the streets rather, in your listing of comparable properties, and some of them I am not familiar with. Map would have been nice, but short of that, is there some area that these are all bound by that you can describe to me?
2B, MLS 2B neighborhood.
Well, that doesn't help me.
I thought you were a professional. MLS has
Professional
MLS has about 20 odd divisions of the city, and generally when we look for a property, we stay in that region, and the reason for going outside of it is, say, if it's on the boundary. So 2B is, which would, like 2A would be older St. Boniface, 2B would be the portion that stretches into St. Vital, 2C is further south in St. Vital.
Well, this is from the river, then stretching eastward. How far?
Yeah, well, the assessors got the MLS book, I noticed, that shows the boundaries.
This is
Well,
the
just-
MLS book.
It's not
This is just a map.
Okay.
With your familiarity with these streets, how far east are we looking here?
Well, Braemar is, where they're located is, to get there, you know where the red top is? You go down about 2 blocks.
I know where Braemar is.
And-
It's the other properties.
Yeah.
Like, does this go all the way to the same river?
To
East
be,
of the same? Or does it go past the St. Archibald?
think about that.
Hey,
I don't do a lot of residential, you know? Like Lindale Drive is in here in 2B, and that's on the other side.
it's on the other side.
Yeah, and some of those are river, so that one, Norwood Flats. On that basis, these are all characterized as Norwood or Norwood Flats. I think the flats are
Larchwood
West
Flats?
west side of the St. Mary's, and Norwood itself is east side.
Okay. Larchwood, is that in the flats?
It says it's in the flats, yes.
Okay. All right, so we've got a mix here of properties that are on the same side of St. Mary's Road, between St. Mary's and the Seine River, like Braemar.
Right.
Then we've got Desmurons, which is quite a busy collector street. We've got Lindale Drive, which, would you describe that as a nicer address than Braemar, more in the market, a more competitive?
Well, the problem,
address, or-
yeah, Lindale's got a couple of interesting stretches on it where they sort of, I'm not sure if it predates or postdates Wildwood, but where they ran into the neighborhood with a front yard shared and then the backyard with the garages, and there's no river on it. Everything's a view. My wife's grandparents lived in Lindale for the longest time, and it was kind of annoying with the traffic going by, but there is some value to the view.
Well, if you made the assumption that in 2B, there are actually some submarkets and
Yeah,
there's
yeah.
some distinction between them, would there be 3 or 4 here that you could point to that are most like Braemar?
I'm anticipating that in advance. So on page 1, you'll notice that the Lindale Drive ended up being the highest one. So that would likely be less of a reliance. So I'm now just quickly scanning for the Norwood ones. Yeah, Desmurin, I believe, I agree with you that it's a bit of a higher traffic. So comparables, putting aside Norwood Flats and putting aside Desmuron, you know, you've got 104 Bramer, which is just down the across the street, and Horace, Cote, Eugenie, and Larchwood. So these range from 161 to 251 a square foot.
Larchwood in the flats?
Doesn't say it's in the flats. You want to take it out, that's fine. It's at the high end of the range, but I mean, we're still seeing a range that's pretty much going to hover with a mean of around 200 a square foot.
Okay.
And so I think just that's kind of the nature of that neighborhood.
All right. That would be all my questions. So that then would conclude the 2019 on Braemar. So we're going to move to 2020. And Ms. Sharp, let us know if there are things that we can assume from our discussion of the 2019, but otherwise tell us what the differences are.
Okay, this is for 0608171800 89 Braemar Avenue. This is for the 2020 assessment for April 1st, 2018 market value date. All of the comparables will be different because we're using a different set of database. And again, most of them have basement finish, part basement. Most of them are quite a bit smaller than the property. We're asking that there is no change to the assessment for 438.
On the comparables you've got, again, and I just want to make sure we establish this for the record. Sorry, I misplaced. I don't know, I lost it. Oh, here we go. Now, just getting back to what I was asking earlier on these properties, how many of these, do you know how many of these came from MLS?
No.
Were listed? Okay. So you're not aware that 310 Provencher, 91 Taché have not been listed for sale by a realtor?
I'll have to take your word for it. I don't know.
Okay. Other than that, my question would just be fairly repetitive in terms of the size, dimensions, and comparison of 1.5 stories and 2 stories to 1 3/4 story. And
we will assume we have much the same questions in tens.
yeah, so that's not going to assist the board anymore, I suppose. Just Okay, no, sorry, there's nothing I can deal with in summation.
Okay.
Thank you.
Ms. Garrity?
I guess it's just the rate has changed in 1 year, and the method of that again is just computer generated, or is there some other way of getting the 417 up to 438?
Basically, we're looking at two completely different sets of data. For the first one, we're looking at any sales that took place in 2014, 15, 16, up to April 1st of 2016. And for the second set of data, we're looking at houses that would have sold from April 1st, 16 to April 1st, 18. So we're looking at two years newer sales. So chances are that the prices are going to go up over the 2 years. We don't know that for sure. It's no guarantee, but generally that can be explained by the different data.
Okay, and the square footage again hasn't been addressed, the difference in presentation of the square foot?
Well, no, because we've just been told.
All right, thank you.
Mr. Moretsky?
No questions.
Questions about your comparables 2 and 4, Provencher Boulevard and Taché Avenue.
Okay.
Would they have different zoning than there would be at 291 Kitson and 124 Braemar?
You know, I couldn't tell you off the top of my head.
Can you tell me off the top of your head whether there's a mix of property uses on Provencher Boulevard and Taché Avenue? And
Yes.
there's not a mix on Kitson and Braemar?
As far as I know, there is a mix on Provencher and Taché.
Okay. Does that have bearing on what somebody would pay for those properties?
It could affect, it depends on where they are. I mean, if they're right beside something, like in the particular case of comparable to, it is commercial adjacent and has heavy traffic. So it has been taken into consideration that that one would be probably selling lower value than most of the other ones.
But they
And
would be selling at a lower value because of the commercial?
yeah, like the commercial adjacent and the heavy traffic and the bus stop would probably affect like a decrease in the value of the
So
property.
you're saying there's some obsolescence going on here, as opposed to my actually wondering about whether there's more value because it could be turned into a commercial property.
Depends on whether they remain as commercial property or residential property. If they are zoned different, it could have more value as commercial property. From what I understand right now, these properties are all residential properties.
Okay, thank you. That's all my questions. Mr. Neufeld?
As before, we have the correct measurements listed and listings from 2B. They range, and you'll note I did bold the actual sale of the property, and that's what the listing provided on it for sale, which is $1,275, and that's over 176 a square foot. And then there was some work done on it. When considering Norwood alone, there's Enfield, Dubuque, Roger, Hillcrest, Horace, Edgewood, and Braemar itself. And those range from 170 a foot to 234 a square foot. Now, the only difference in the values over the time is the range is still wide. The range is wide, but the median has tightened up. You'll note that in the previous year, they were all over the board and ranging. Now the medians on these tend to be a bit higher, and that would just be an indication of the market and improvements people put in their home and what's happening with it. So it would indicate a slight increase in value. Using a mean of 223.80 a square foot. Which the correct square footage is 338,000. And we have all the listings for these on pages 4 to 7. That's my presentation.
Questions?
Can you tell me what has been complete on the basement? Or what isn't, whichever is easiest.
Bathroom is done. The plumbing, I should say, is done. Mechanical is done. But it's mostly just most all finish.
So there's no carpet, no paint, no ceiling.
The ceiling is still open, and of course, there's no flooring. Last time I was there.
Is there any estimation of when this is going to be complete?
At this point in time, they're lacking the motivation to finish.
Okay. I'm taking a look at your comparables here, and I noticed on the last set, you had most of the properties were in that 1940s range. Now we have no idea how much of a effective age would be on those properties from their updates. But in this particular listing that you're giving me, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 properties that are like 1906, 1907, 1915. Have those properties been updated, would you say, by a 70-year effective age?
Unlike the other one, I don't have the description here. You notice in the 2019, they printed out the listing with the comments, and the comments aren't included here. So I don't have that.
And also the 1940s ones, 44, 48, those type of ones, do you have any indication of which ones of those would be updated similar?
I don't have that information here, and I didn't present it to the board.
Okay, so you don't have any idea what kind of condition any of these properties are in?
No, the concern on age and condition is, of course, you know, I've told you that there's new roof, new trusses, but, you know, we're still got the original foundation and the original envelope. So I think that it's when they bought the home, you'll know that they purchased it for a fairly low value, and that's just an indication that it was one of the homes that hadn't been renovated yet in St. Boniface.
But now it is. So you've indicated new trusses and that type of
Right.
thing. But is the only renovation that's done to the property the part that's the 190 square foot addition part
Well, no,
where the kitchen is?
The roof, new trusses.
Right. So the
So-
whole house hasn't been renovated, like flooring, bathrooms done, paint, that kind of stuff?
Oh, I mean, sure, the redecoration.
Okay,
occurred.
so it's been completely renovated, not just the area that was added on.
Well, sure. Yeah, I'm trying to search for what the right word is. But yes, it's been worked on.
Well, and I guess if they had to put new trusses on it, they basically had to take the roof off and put a new roof on, right?
That's
Basically.
exactly, yeah, so it's a new roof.
Right. Okay, so do you have any idea if there's any of these comparables that are here that would have had that type of a renovation take place on them?
I unfortunately am missing it from my package, as the description that we had on the last one. And so I can't, I find it a little difficult to answer. However, looking at the sales, I think you can note that there's appears to be an interesting range where we have the sub 200 square foot sales and the above 200 square foot sales. So that's this market, this part of the market is just exhibiting a renovated versus an unrenovated stage. So if you're unrenovated, you're going to be in the 170s. If you're renovated, you're going to be in the 230s, right?
In the particular case where I'm looking at mine, I know that they have been renovated and they are updated properties. Is there a reason that you would have included the 89 Brermore sale in this listing, knowing that it wasn't the same condition? Because all it does is bring your average down.
And that's a fair point. What I had done here is I had marked the Norwood ones and looked at the range. And the highest one in the range is still the at 124 Bramer at 234 square foot. So that, I respect your comment on that. And possibly that might even be a need to look at 234 square foot. I could see that. That would be.
Well, I do have 124 Bremer on my sheet. And time adjusted, it comes out to 377. But even without considering time adjusted, it comes out to 357. But it has a 280 square foot 1940 garage versus a 2018 720 square foot garage. And Braemar, we can't guarantee that Braemar has been updated to the standard that or 124 Braemar, we don't know it's been updated to the standard of 89, do we?
Well, very detailed question there. First, dealing with the garages, your own workup doesn't support garage value because your highest sales don't have garages and your lowest sales do.
But there could be other reasons for that.
Exactly. There could be other reasons for it.
Mm-hmm.
So we're not going down the garage path. It is an accessory use on a garage and a nominal influence on value. Sorry, I forgot the rest of it.
I guess what I'm trying to determine is, looking at this list that we're looking at, I don't understand which ones I'm supposed to be looking at in order to determine which ones are comparable to Braemar.
Well,
89 Braemar.
We're dealing with a mass appraisal concept here, not a site-specific valuation. And so our approach to this has always been, bring all the sales in 2B that are close to the same size as the subject to the board, and then present them. And when we get there and we have a debate on it, you know, we can make some calls. And this is what I like to do, is just look at them and say, you know, looking at this, the mean median is going to be somewhere around 223 a square foot. But I think our strongest comparable is likely 124 Braemar, and suggest that 234 a square foot, which is a value of 353,000, might be a bit fair in this respect, because we are dealing with mass techniques. If we could provide more data, then we get into site-specific valuation, which the previous submission was, then we can look at what the work that's been done on a site, just to try to slot it in on that basis.
No further questions?
Ms. Garrity, do you have questions?
No, I don't. Thank you.
Mr. Moretsky?
No questions.
And I have no questions. So that concludes 89 Braemar both years. That concludes your items there, Mr. Neufeld. Thank you very much for coming today. What's your pleasure? Do you want to carry on, deal with some of these? Would you rather hold your fire for another day? Sorry, this has gone on for a while.
What's our time here?
Let's say 5 o'clock.
5 o'clock. I'm willing to get through some of them.
All right.
Yeah, and then if let's just reschedule the rest, we'll get it.
Okay.
That's how we said.
Sure. We'll go to 5. All right. Ms. Garrity?
Yep, that's okay with me.
Thanks, Russ. Okay, let's just take 5 minutes while you set up. We stretch our legs. And we will resume this session with 661 Park Boulevard, swearing in, please.
Ryan Oliveros.
Do you affirm that the evidence you're about to give at this hearing should be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Okay, Ms. Harp?
The property subject is 661 Park Boulevard East. The parcel ID is 100062360000, and it's located in South Tuxedo. It's a 2-story property built in 1987, 5,606 square feet with a full basement and basement finish. It has an attached multiple car garage and an in-ground pool. It does have an assessed lot size of 14,389, and it is influenced by a park. The current assessment we have on this property is $1,493,000, which is $266.32 per square foot. The comparable properties that I have provided are all located in the South Tuxedo area. Unfortunately, most of them are quite a bit smaller, just due to the size of the subject property. They range from about 3,700 square feet to about 4,600 square feet. All of them have full basement finish. 3 out of the 4 have a pool. And the only significant difference, most of them are close in property size. The only significant difference is Dunbar has a slightly smaller lot, and it does have a light traffic influence on that property. Those sales range from $1 million to $1,470,000 and range from $266 to $374 per square foot. We feel that the comparable properties provided support the value at $1,493,000.
Questions?
Yes. Have you reviewed the listings, the MLS listings for your comparable properties at all?
If they had them, yes.
They have been, yes. So can you confirm if any of these have been reported on MLS?
I can't tell you that right off the top of my head.
Okay. Have any of these homes been renovated? I could tell by the effective age that there might have been some.
Yes, looks like there has been a small amount of renovations done to the first 3 comparables. But yes, the first one has a 10-year effective age, comparable 2 has a 5-year effective age, and comparable 3 has an 8-year effective age.
Okay. Are you able to tell us what the asking prices for each of these comparables are?
No, that has no bearing on our what we do, so we don't watch the asking price.
Okay. All right. And this is just for my own knowledge. I'm not saying that the time adjustments that the model has created are either right or wrong, but given the character of the houses within the South Tuxedo area, would you say that a lot of the houses there are quite unique, each and of their own?
They are very unique in that area, and I'm not worried about the time adjustment because I think the sale prices themselves, without the time adjustment, support the value.
Okay. Without the time adjustment, support the value. Okay. And again, I'm just asking these questions for my own knowledge, but for the time adjustments, when the model generates those time adjustments, are they so the time adjustments are made by comparing similar houses, correct?
The time adjustments are made by the computer on an overall basis for the whole city.
For the whole city. Okay,
Yeah.
so no time adjustments are made looking at the specific areas.
I'm not sure about that, whether they break it down by area to put it into here. My understanding is it's for the city.
Okay, so it's an aggregate
Yeah.
increase that they
Yeah.
consider.
But as I said, the time adjusted sale prices really don't affect in this particular case because all of the sale prices support the value without going to the time adjusted sale price value.
So you're saying that for the subject property would be more on the high end of your comparable sales? Because I'm just looking at it's higher than any of the sales that you're looking at.
Well, because it's 1,000 square foot bigger than the smallest one we're looking at.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And have you reviewed sales within the reference period that have been over 5,000 square feet?
These are the sales that came up. I can't tell you if there were others.
Okay, so you,
These are the ones that I chose to use that I thought were the most comparable.
okay, I understand. I believe the rest of my questions will, I believe everything else will be answered during my presentation. So that's all I have for now. Thank you.
Ms. Garrity, do you have questions?
No, I don't. Thank you.
Mr. Moretsky?
No questions.
Your adjusted sale price per square foot varies from 278 up to 380. Pretty fair spread there.
Right.
The total assessment per square foot on the subject is 266.
Right.
Given that the comparables are smaller, is there some economy of scale working here, and that's the result? That the
I did take
lower?
economies of scale into consideration when I was reviewing it, yes.
Okay. But you didn't alter the 1.493. That is what came out of.
Yes, that's the number that the computer determined from the information provided.
All right. Okay, that's all my questions. Mr. Oliveros?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Okay, so the subject property, 661 Park Boulevard East. We're looking at the 2021 realty assessment roll. We're asking for a reduction from 1,493,000 to 1,373,000. I have a very short property description on page 2, as well as a very small map on page 2 as well, just showing the location of the subject property along Park Boulevard. So I'm just going to skip on to page 4 of my brief. Oh, and one more thing, I have included just one photo of the subject on page 8 of my brief. I was trying to get more information on my client, but there are some detrimental conditions that are of a concern. I haven't inspected the property myself, so just to acknowledge that, but what I have been told is that the windows have been leaking and need replacement. There is paint damage in the basement, and there are some updates required to bringing the property up to of a more modern standard. Okay, so now moving on to my comps here. The years built range from 1990 to 2003. I have the sizes ranging from 4,649 square feet to 5,518 square feet to try to bring the sizes closer to the subject. Lot sizes 14,030 square feet to 17,116 square feet. The sale prices per square foot, $233 per square foot to $293 per square foot. As you will notice already, I haven't applied any time adjustments here. As it was learned through questioning, the time adjustments are taken through aggregate. And this is just me learning from experience that houses within the South Tuxedo area, they could go up and down depending on the state of the market at that point. To bring, and the assessor has agreed to this too, to bring these houses to the same condition to apply time adjustment would be very difficult. What they teach us in appraisal theory is to pick like houses and then apply the time adjustment from there. So that's why I haven't chosen to do the time adjustments for this property and the other properties that we will be speaking of later on in this hearing. So the average of my comparable properties, $258.63 a square foot, with the median $249.18 a square foot. So I have included photos of the comparable properties on pages 9 to 10 of my brief. I normally put the map, I normally put a map of the location of the of my comparable properties. However, I did fail to do that today, but I can tell you that the subject, it's on the northern portion of the South Tuxedo area, and the comps that we're looking at are on the southwest portion of South Tuxedo. So just to give you all perspective of where the comparables as well as the subject is located. And again, we're asking the board to reduce the assessed value from $1,493,000 to $1,373,000. That brings us then to a price per square foot of $245 per square of $245 a square foot, which is within the range of the comps that I have presented to you all today. And that concludes my presentation. Thank you very much.
Questions?
Yes, the is your reduction in value based on the condition of the property, or is it based on the comparables of the property?
It would be more so based on the comparables. I did take into account just looking at the ceiling, just a little. I wouldn't even say I would have put a lot of weight on the condition because I wasn't able to confirm anything. I don't believe in doing that as much. So it is purely based off of. I would say it actually is purely based on the comps. Yes.
Okay, so do you have an indication of what kind of condition the comparable properties are in?
Yeah. So typically, what I do for when I type down the state on the computer is I will see if there has been any upgrades to the subjects. As you can see here, the only comp here that I have here, 18 Dumfries, that is the only property that I found looking at the MLS listing that has had upgrades. The roof was done in 2012 as well as a bathroom. They didn't state that. Comps number 1 and number 3, I do not believe have had any upgrades done to them, at least not what I read from MLS.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Are you do you understand that number 1 Kerslake is kind of a controversial comparable, that it was part of a divorce settlement? Does it state that?
Doesn't state that on here.
Okay.
I can share this with you if you wanted us both to confirm.
No? Okay. That's okay. So all of them were fair market value sales then?
As far as I know from the
Okay.
listings, yes.
And Kerslake has an indoor pool. Would you say that's a detriment or a positive attribute?
It's very subjective. I understand having a pool in your house, it is actually considered a health issue, but then there would be others that would look to it as a positive. Yeah, it's too subjective in my mind to say whether it be a positive or negative influence on value.
Okay. And when you're saying the condition of the property, you understand that this 1987 means that that's an original 1987 condition. If the property had been updated with windows and doors and shingles, furnace, all those kinds of things, that we would probably put a higher value on the property. Like this is as is 1987, as it was
Yes.
built in 1987 is the way we have it assessed. Whereas, for example, 625 Park, it was built in 77, but we have 87 on it, mostly because of the upgrades in it. So when we're looking at the 1987, we're saying there's been no upgrades. It's all in original condition.
Yeah, I do understand
You
that.
understand
yes.
that?
Mhm.
Okay. Is there a reason that you didn't include 625 Park Avenue East when it was just right down the street from the property? Is it just because of the size?
625. It really is because of the size, yes.
Okay.
So, and looking at the sales that I have here on my page 5, you can see that the difference between the selling prices of larger homes compared to the smaller homes that you have presented to us today. There doesn't seem to be too much of a difference, and there may be some that we don't know about, but that's what I'm seeing off of the hop here.
Okay. No further questions.
Dorothy, do you have questions?
I guess the only question I have is on your page 6, I think it is, where you have your comparables.
That would be page 5, I believe, right?
Okay, on here. So okay, you've got the comp 1, 2, and 3, and then all of those rates down at the bottom showing the assessment per square foot. How do you get, like, I don't get the same average that you do, and I'm wondering what you use to get your averages.
Oh, okay, so the averages that I'm seeing here, and it's actually average sale price per square foot, and I know I put it adjusted, but we don't calculate, I didn't calculate the averages for the assessment. Those are the average sale price and medium sale price of the actual sale prices themselves. So that would be the part just not highlighted.
Line up above the purple stuff.
Sorry?
The line above the amounts in purple.
The line above the amounts in purple, correct.
All right. Thank you, because I was working with the assessment amounts. Okay.
Okay. No worries.
Mr. Moretsky?
What kind of damage is in the basement?
It's just it is just paint damage. So the basement to me appears to just need to be repainted.
Further questions? And your three comparables, the sale price per square foot, they are $233, then $249, then $293. You settled on $245. How did you settle on $245?
That was just a subjective opinion, just looking at the comps here. Yeah, it was all just subjective, just choosing what I have here. Obviously, the comps number 1 and 3 would be closest in square footage to the subject. When it comes to condition, I would say because I wasn't able to confirm the detrimental condition of the subject, I would say that they're all equal at this point, making that assumption. So just going into the middle, because I'm not considering the detrimental condition as much, I tried to go on the higher end of comps number 1 and 3, which I feel are my most compelling comps in this case.
Then a question back to the assessor. The value that has been derived, that is model generated, I assume that accounts for depreciation?
Yes, it would be basically saying that this house is original 1987.
And do you know what the percentages per year
are? No, and I think it would depend if it's a 1-story, 2-story, there would be a lot of variables that would be involved in that.
And there was no assessor override of the model generated depreciation to vary it from what the
No, not in this case. There was not, no.
That's all my questions. Okay, thank you very much. That concludes 661 Park Boulevard. And they would be moving on to 191 Dawn Ridge. Ms. Garrity, I understand that you now have all the evidence. You've got the applicant evidence. Okay.
Yes.
Ms. Sharp.
Okay, so this property is 191 Dawn Ridge Drive, and the parcel ID is 0802097250. It's located in South St. Vital perimeter area, so just south of the south perimeter. This property is a 2-story, built in 2006, 2,400 square feet. The property does have a number of outbuildings. It has a 936 square foot attached garage. It has a 345 square foot single detached garage built in 2010. And it also has a detached multiple car garage of 1,300 square feet that was built in 2007. It is located, we have heavy traffic on the property, which is a carryover to the, as you can see on the map there, it's located fairly close to the perimeter area. So that's where that heavy traffic noise could be coming from. No sewer, no water. All my comparables have had no sewer, no water, and are all located in that southern area of St. Vital. The first 3 properties are fairly similar in size. The last 2 properties are probably 2 to 3 times the size for acreage. They range from 1987 to about 2010 for age of the properties. Comparable number 2 and number 3 have no basement finish. And the sale price of the properties range between about $560,000 to about $960,000. Ranges from about $243 per square foot to about $344 per square foot. We feel that the $757,000 assessment is supported by these comparables, and we're asking for no change to the 2021 assessed value.
Questions? Mr. Oliveros?
Yes. Just for your comparable number 1697 St. Anne's, just to clarify this discrepancy, I believe we have between both of our evidence that we have submitted. I have 2,300 square feet according to the MLS. You appear to have 2,020 square feet. How is that typically measured? Or these measurements are all by inspection, or?
Well, the measurements are what's put in by, when it would have built in 2006, we would have received a blueprint.
Okay.
And we would have entered the information from that. The only thing that I can say that may be a difference is that we don't take into consideration open area inside of the home, and MLS measures from the outside of the home. So that's the only, it's about what, 300 square foot difference?
About 300 square foot
Yeah,
difference, yeah.
then that's the only thing I can think of without having all the information here. That's the only thing I can think of.
Okay. I'll make other points in my presentation, so that concludes my questions. Thank you.
Gary?
No questions this time.
Mr. Moretzky?
No questions?
Looking at your comparables, none of those have quite the same influences. I'm just wondering how influential some of those influences are. If you were looking to buy any one of these 5 properties, and you were looking at the subject, what would be an influence that would really come to your mind and make you pause?
Yes. Well, yes, you can see comparable 1 and 4 have a traffic influence on them as well. But that is the St. Anne's Road traffic influence, whereas this one would be the perimeter. So it probably would be taken into consideration for sure.
So how much of a consideration is that? You can't say what the
I
model
can't
does.
say. No, I can't say.
That would be helpful. Too bad. Because it would be a fairly different set of circumstances, wouldn't it? With respect to.
Yeah, although the lot is quite large, so I would imagine the house is probably closer to the inside versus closer to the outside.
But you don't have firsthand knowledge of that.
No, not off the top of my head.
You don't know how open this area tends to be.
No, just from the map, you can tell kind of where the perimeter highway goes through.
Mm-hmm.
That's the only thing, that it does back onto the perimeter highway.
You have no firsthand knowledge whether there's anything that is a barrier to that noise. Okay. All my questions. Mr. Oliveros.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Bresky. Okay, so the subject property, 191 Don Ridge Drive. We are requesting the board to reduce the 2021 realty assessment from $757,000 to $725,000. The assessor, for the most part, has described the property quite accurately. So I won't skip over that. I do just want to make the statement that the basement is actually unfinished. I have asked my client to take photos of his basement just to confirm for us. So you can see that on pages 8 to 8 to 16 of, or sorry, not 8 to 16, 8 to 14 of my brief. That the basement that I have actually confirmed that the basement is unfinished. And this was just this past weekend that I asked him to take those photos for me. Okay, so moving on to my comps here. Just gotta flip to cover page.
Wow.
So you can see that the ages for the comparables I've chosen to present to you today, 1994 to 2010. The total living area, the range of the living area is 2,154 square feet to 2,988 square feet, all with full basement finishes for these, for the comps, in comparison to the subject property that does not have a basement finish. And you can see the mix of garages here. So DA stands for double attached. SD stands for single detached. So I hope my acronyms there are quite clear. I can clarify on that through questioning if you'd like. And the lot sizes range from 85,500 square feet to 217,692 square feet. Comps numbers 1 and 2, fairly newer builds in comparison to comps 3 and 4, much newer builds actually. No upgrades, of course, because there are newer builds. 1670 St. Anne's Road. There were upgrades in 2009, however, they were not disclosed in MLS. 84 Fraser Road. There have been upgrades to the kitchen, bedroom, and there was a bedroom addition between 2012 to 2013. And and I believe the basement was upgraded as well. So either way I took this, if I were to make an adjustment for the unfinished basement space, I basically came out to the same number, whether I based the reduction on my comps or the finished basement. I chose to make it based off of the comps. So acknowledging that the subject is a newer build, I went to the highest range of the comps that I've provided. I know there's a discrepancy that we have for the total living area for 1697 St. Anne's Road. I went with what MLS had said. So applying that rate per square foot of $302 to the 2,400 square foot living area of the subject, I come up to my requested value of $725,000, and that is what I asked the board to reduce the 2021 assessment to today. And that concludes my presentation. I am open for questions. Thank you.
Are you aware that assessment is a range of values?
Yes.
Okay, and that there's a confidence interval that we work within, that they're not all going to be exactly right on. Some are going to be a little bit higher and some are going to be a little bit lower because we're working with a model.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's not site specific.
Yeah, you're looking at a range and then we use specific ones to support, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you're under that understanding. You realize that the reduction you're asking for is less than 5%?
Yes.
Okay. Just because we usually look at a 95% confidence interval. So we usually wouldn't make an adjustment for less than 5%. The board is certainly welcome to, and that be their decision. That being said, I will submit that we have the basement as finished. For whatever reason, my guess is that there was someone did an inspection at one point, left a card, and then assumed that the basement was finished. But I will submit that it is unfinished, so that would make a difference in the value. Only question.
Garrity, do you have questions?
No, I think the assessor covered it really well. Thank you.
Mr. Naretsky?
Yeah, just to get back to the finishing or unfinishing of the basement, I agree that in general, it's, by the pictures, it's not, I would say not finished, although it does look like there's something done to it on the outside walls. What's going on with the outside walls?
The outside
Or is
wall.
that drywall or is it insulated or?
I don't know what that material is called, but I'm assuming that you're referring to page 8.
Yeah, 8 and 9, right?
8 and 9.
9.
Yeah, so that looks like it may be some drywall finish for some of it, but it might just, the page 8 looks like it's just coverings there to probably just protect the insulation at the moment. Pages 9 and 10 those do appear to be drywall finished to me though.
So in the sense that you call a basement unfinished, usually that means that it's the bare concrete. Did you say that? Yeah. When you say unfinished, when a basement is unfinished, it just has bare concrete?
Yes.
So this one does have something done to it though, right? It's easy to, there's studs in the middle too, which leads me to believe that maybe there is rooms that were being developed or maybe roughed in bathroom and laundry, that kind of stuff.
Yes.
So on a percentage basis, if you go from unfinished bare concrete to completely finished, this one is probably somewhere like 25, 30% finished. Would you say that? Or what would you say?
Maybe 25 to 30% is where I wouldn't argue it for less than 5, another like 5% less than at this point. But again, like this, you can see here that the basement ceiling needs to be finished. A number of the walls do have to be finished, and it appears to me that most of the flooring is still bare concrete. So there's still significant amounts of finish that need to, or significant amount of finishes that need to be completed.
Okay, no further questions.
You have a range in your sale price per square foot, as low as $243, going up to $261. But you have $302 and $258. You're saying that your average is $266, your median is $259, yet you're using $302.
Yeah, so I actually have a comp on there, 1697 St. Anne's. It's actually $302 a square foot. I think you stated that my highest comp was $261 per square foot.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
But that is the amount that you are using in your calculation, correct?
That is correct.
25 rounded or 302 per square foot.
Yes.
So why is it that you're using that one as opposed to the other comparables or the average?
Right, so I'm using that because after looking at the aggregate data that I have found through the city's website, Donridge Road, it is a much newer area than where the comps are located. The comps, I believe, are also located, or at the time they were sold, they were located on a gravel road. I would expect that to have some influence. Nobody really wants to drive their cars along a gravel road. And yeah, just based on the fact that Donridge Drive, I'm acknowledging that it is in a newer area that is paved. I would say that 302 is more than fair in this case. And again, there are two approaches that it could have taken with this finished basement, either accounting for the finished basement or just purely on the comps. Of course, I'm looking at the comps here, and again, I'm coming out to the same number. So, and to also state, as I was looking through the data along Donridge Road, I believe 18. So there's 22 houses along Donridge Road. 18 of them had finished basements. Only 4 had only 4 had unfinished basements, to my knowledge, or maybe just partial. So that would have some influence. I'm seeing as how it looks like the standard for that area seems to be finished basement. Seems to have finished basement.
In your photos, it's evident that there is some bush behind the house.
There is
Several of those houses along that street have some bush.
Mhm.
It looks like it'd be roughly 2 stories high.
Yeah.
Does that attenuate the noise that comes from the perimeter highway or not?
Yeah, so trees I know would protect the house from adverse weather conditions, and I know those trees would likely be a sound absorber too. So I would state that would help the noise reduction for the homes in that area.
But would you discount there being traffic influence, or is it an influence on that property?
I haven't inspected the property myself, so I'm making the assumption that the trees would be a sound absorber, but I can't state that. I can't state how much of that noise would actually be, excuse me, I can't state how much of that noise would actually be reduced. I'm assuming that the heavy traffic influence, that's mostly to do with noise and views of this of any property that we're looking at.
Right, that's all my questions. That takes care of 191 Don Ridge. We'll move on to 173 Ash.
Okay, property is 173 Ash Street, parcel ID 1205006300. It is a 1-story property built in 1925. It has a 1955 effective age on it due to the upgrades that have been done. It does a detached single-car garage, and it is located on a property that is 4,822 square feet, and it is commercial adjacent. The total assessment at this point is $394,000, which is $360 per square foot. This located in North River Heights area. I have found 4 properties in North River Heights area. All of them have some, the first 3, have some effective age adjustments to them, similar to the subject property. And the subject, the comparable number 4, has no updates, but I included it because it is located on the same street, same area. The properties range from $330,000 to $433,000, and that ranges between about $332 per square foot to $428 per square foot. I believe that our comparables support the value of the property at $394,000, and we're asking for no change to the assessment.
Questions?
How does the model determine the effective ages of the
Effective ages, we have a calculator that we use that we take into consideration what has been done and what effect that is, but it's an internal calculation. Yeah.
So, all right. That surprised me because my understanding was that someone from the office would actually go there and inspect the property to see what the effective age is, but you're saying it's actually an internal calculation?
Well, I mean, the computer, it's an internal calculation, but it's based on evidence.
Okay.
Either corrected from the MLS or from an inspection. So it would have been information we found out that they had increased, they had put in new windows, new furnace, new shingles, that type of thing. We put that into a calculator and it gives us a number.
Okay.
But it is based on the upgrades.
No further questions. Thank you.
Ms. Garrity, do you have questions?
No questions?
Mr. Maretsky?
No questions.
Your comparables, thinking out loud here, time adjusted sale price per square foot. there's a pretty fair range here, 335 up to 436.
Correct.
You're using the 360 model generated.
Yes.
Comparable number one, having a time adjusted sale price of 436, a sale price of 395 on only 922 square feet. What made that an attractive property?
I would imagine that probably the upgrades that had been done in the property and the location close to the school possibly.
You're not sure what those upgrades
No,
would be.
yeah, I'm not
Somebody brought it
sure.
up to 1949. It's not like it was.
Right, I mean,
90.
according to us, it's 49, but, you know, people can see it differently than we do.
You look at the map, subject property is immediately south of a large lot. I'm guessing that's the old Uptown Lanes. Would I be right or not?
I believe so, yes.
And what is happening with that property at this point in time? And does that have any bearing on the value of the subject property?
I couldn't tell you what's happening with that right now. But yes, it does have a commercial adjacent influence on it, so it would have affected the value of the property. Yes, currently we have a commercial adjacent on it. So that means that we would have already been considering that that's probably a detriment. So it's probably lowered the value of the property.
That's my questions. Older.
Thank you. All right. So the subject property, 173 Ash Street, roll number 1205006300. We're asking this board to reduce the 2021 realty assessment from $394,000 to $361,000. The assessor has described the property accurately already, so I'll just skip over that. Just give me a second to flip to another page here. So the years built of my comps on page 4 of my brief are range from 1929 to 1954. The living area is 914 square feet to 1,094 square feet. Lot sizes 4,318 square feet to 4,822 square feet. You can see, I stated on my sheet here that comps number 1 and 3 to 5 have all received numerous upgrades. For comps number 3 and 4, they were not disclosed within the MLS listing as well. I do have photos of that, so I can confirm that there were upgrades done to those 2 properties. So looking at these comps, they range from $274.22 a square foot and to $428.42 a square foot. And I do acknowledge that the building to the north of the subject was Uptown Alley. The average of my comps that I presented today, $346.97 a square foot, and the median is $339.17 a square foot. I do know that the subject has received some upgrades looking at the MLS listing for it back in 2014, I believe. And based off of that, I am asking the board to reduce the assessed value to $361,000 or $330 a square foot. I know I went on the lower end of my comps. I believe that the subject itself hasn't gone through as many upgrades as the comps that I've looked at, and I believe that they were they have gone through as much upgrades, but I believe that they were older, seeing as how the listing was in 2014. And I believe the upgrades were made sometime in 2010, but give me a second and I'll confirm that with you all. That way I'm not just stating that out of nowhere. So I have numerous upgrades done in 2010. So, and again, we're asking the board to reduce the 2021 assessed value to 361,000. And that concludes my presentation. Thank you.
Can you indicate what kind of renovations were done in 2010?
Yeah, for sure. Okay, so new windows throughout. That wasn't confirmed to be 2010 though. New shingles in 2010. Newer furnace. Newer Fujitsu air conditioning system. New kitchen and granite countertops. Tiled backsplash. Built-in dishwasher. 2 new 4-piece bathrooms. Extensive interlocking landscaping and patios. Wood burning fireplace and travertine tile and glass doors. The newly developed basement with rec room. That was in 2010. Extra bedroom, new 4-piece bathroom and storage room. Updated electrical and plumbing. Some pump pit, pump and backflow valve in 2010. Single detached garage in 2010. And newly fenced backyard. And new appliances in 2010. As well as a new front door.
So in your opinion, would you consider that fairly updated?
That would be fairly updated, yes. But I believe that the comps that I'm looking at right now have also had numerous updates as well. To the extent of the subject, I'm looking at the extent of these, looking at the photos. I just picked a number within the range of the comps that I've looked at.
Right, okay. That was my next question. I noticed that your average is $346.97 a square foot. Your median's $339.17 a square foot, but yet you've chosen $330 per square foot.
Right.
And so and with those renovations, I'm not sure why we're at the bottom of the scale.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, you're correct. It would probably be more so. It would be on the higher end. I agree that it should be at about 350.
So that would bring us out at about 383,000. Okay, and again, you understand the range that would be within 5%?
That would be within 5%. Yes.
Correct. Okay, no more questions.
Ms. Garrity, questions?
No, thank you.
Mr. Moreski, questions?
Yeah, your comp number 1442 Niagara Street. I'm just reading the upgrades there to that one. That sounds very similar to what was done to the subject property.
Mm-hmm.
Would you agree with that?
Yes, but those upgrades appear to be much newer than the subject, which again, the listing was in 2014. I mean, I've already said it, but maybe 330 is supported, but
Yeah.
these upgrades for pump number 1 at 442 Niagara are much newer than the subject itself.
Okay, they're newer. Sure. Anyways, that one sold for $399,000 or almost $400,000, January 15th, 2018. No further questions.
No questions for you, Mr. Oliveros, but back to the assessor. That was quite an extensive list of renovations that Mr. Oliveros read off.
Mm-hmm.
The year built for the subject is 1925, effective age is 1955. So all of that only brought the house up to 1955. So we still have, a lot of years to go to get something current.
Right.
What is the limit in the computer system as to how much it will change the effective age?
Well, the effective age is up to us to change, but we do use a formula to come up with the numbers based on what is done. My guess is it might be because of the size of the property, like because it's smaller. Like there was nothing done to the foundation, there was nothing done to the original exterior walls, there was nothing done. And also we try to err on the side of caution. I mean, we wouldn't want to go in and put a 60 or 70 year effective age on something. And then of course somebody would come back and say, you need to support that. So based on what we read in the MLS, that was kind of what we thought we could fairly add to the property.
All my questions. So that deals with 173 Ash. I suggest we call it a draw here, and we move the final two to another day, because we will require some time for deliberation before we get out of here. And the people who are paid can actually go home as opposed to those of us who volunteer, mostly. All right, that will then draw our session to a close. And you will receive, of course, the orders by registered mail as quickly as they can be generated.
And then they'll let us know when they've been moved.
That is
Yeah.
correct.
We will reschedule and
Okay.
send them.
Just to let you know, I do have a hearing on October the 7th, and I know I've done an awful lot of 15-1s on it. So there would definitely be room in there. So I definitely will be back in October if that helps. It's still a month away, but we may want to get in faster than that. But yes.